50.
Right.
Yeah, you
But
do.
people like me took the card and left.
You can stick with the
fixing the interstate.
We've got 2 in addition to... Okay, so there's 11 delegates for this whole caucus. And you need, it's about 30 to get a delegate. So we're at 2 delegates. If we get about 15 more, we'll get a 3rd delegate for Elizabeth. So that's their pieces. We'll see what happens. It's a mover.
Thank you. If you want to, hey, guys, hey, if you guys don't want to realign, those that you turn your card in right now, and you know that's why we're doing this presidential preference card, is to have a paper trail to know what we originally thought. Other than that, I need an update as to the viable groups, who is valuable and how many are in it, to determine how many delegates they get to the county convention.
Carol Ramirez?
And
Okay, did you mean...
Stephanie, we're gonna need to do a little math up here.
So 96 for Bernie right now.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Oh, you want to leave them?
If you can hold on to them, or I can.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I have to account for every one of these.
Let me go round her up. Actually, you might want to call for her again, Stephanie.
Oh. Hey, Stephanie, it's time to figure out the delegates. Okay, also, what do you got there? Oh. Huh?
The Biden group is still working on stuff.
Oh, okay. Here's our cards here. Huh? You take it off?
No, we're just...
Oh.
Paul, I am loving the all new.
So this doesn't have...
No.
Did they just decide not to align?
He left. Yeah. Okay. As soon as the captains figure out how many are in their group, so we can redo the numbers and see how how the delegates are going to shake out, we'll move along. We will also be
They said that this was the media place and you couldn't stand.
You gotta help me, man.
Excellent. Wow, this place is really beautiful. I think I'm going to come here and have a little party sometime. But it's kind of exciting to come here today from Clinton, Iowa, because on the way I passed by Wheatland, Iowa, where my grandparents lived. And so for me, this whole trip has just kind of been one big tour of where all my family grew up and where we went hunting and fishing and that kind of thing. So it's pretty exciting to me. But, you know, people have often asked me why I support Andrew Yang, why I've decided to, you know, be part of this man's crew, and it's a very simple thing. One of the signs you might see here behind me, and we don't have one here, but one of our phrases that we use on this campaign is called humanity first. That we put humans above profits, above big corporations, above pollutions and stuff like that. And that to me is really kind of who Andrew Yang is. And one of the best ways that I can demonstrate kind of who Andrew Yang is when it comes to humanity first came, you know, in a little thing that we had called the Working Heroes Forum back in Des Moines, Iowa, with a guy some of you might know named J.D. Schulten. And, you know, there were about 400 people there. And afterwards, Andrew stopped and took pictures of everybody, which was really exciting. And so I was like, hey, Andrew, I'm hungry. I'm a big dude. We got to go get some dinner, man. But at the end of all that, there was one of our young volunteers who was like, hey, Al, I lost my cell phone. And Andrew looked at each and every one of us and said, guys, we have got to find this kid's cell phone. So not only did he have all of the staff walking up and down the aisles to find this kid's cell phone, Andrew Yang himself was walking up and down the aisles to find this kid's cell phone. And that meant a lot to me. That said a lot to me about who this man was. He's running for the presidency of the United States, one of the most important jobs you can think of in the world. And for him, one kid losing his cell phone meant that, you know what, I wanted to stop and I wanted to take some time to help this kid find his phone. And that to me really says humanity first. Everyone counts. But that's enough of me talking. I would like to introduce a young man some of you might know, Larry, the chair, and I will hand the mic over to him. Make sure I don't step on these two little kids.
Thank you, Al, and welcome again to all of you to Tipton, lovely town of Tipton, and the Oasis. It's a beautiful place, of course, to have an event like this, and it's really nice to see such a large crowd today. I am Larry Hutchins, Senior County Democratic Chair, and I've lived here all my life. As opposed to Al, my life's been a lot longer than Al's, so I've been here a lot longer than he's been around. So most of of you are aware of who's coming today, who's going to be here. Is an entrepreneur that turned around and decided to invest a lot of his money in America. He started Ventures for America and has helped a lot of businesses get started. I am thinking about this. I've introduced a lot of people, candidates. I was really shocked when I first saw his math, M-A-T-H, because I saw that and I go, what the heck does that possibly mean? And I found out it means make America think harder. Well, I got to thinking, which is what that's supposed to do. It's supposed to make you think, right? So I'm thinking, why didn't he make America think again? And then he could have done a little red hat with M-A-T-A on it, and he would have had a MATA hat. So, after introducing all the other candidates that I've introduced, I was thinking of something on the way over here, and I'll borrow a phrase, I think it's from Monty Python's Flying Circus. And now for something entirely different, Andrew Yang.
Hello, Tipton, how are you? It's great to be here. Thank you for the warm introduction, Alan Larry. Ooh, a soapbox. Look at that. It's time to look taller. It's great to be here. This is my 24th trip to Iowa over the last number of months, and every time it's better and better because the energy's higher, the groups are bigger. My first crowd is not as big as this one. And the voting's closer and closer. We're only 4 weeks away from the caucus. And it does not feel like this, but you all are among the most powerful people in our country today. You have the future of the country in your hands. I've done the math. Do you know how many Californians each of you is worth? Well, you came to the right place then. Because you came here, became an Iowan. You now have super democratic powers. Each Iowan is worth about 1,000 Californians in terms of the power you have to shape the future of this country. How many of us are here in this cafe right now? I'm going to give a Trumpian estimate. There are 400 of you here in the There are about 40 people in this room. But even that is the equivalent of one football stadium full of Californians. Right, that's the power you have. That's why it's a thrill and privilege to campaign here every single time. The question is, how are you going to use this power in 4 short weeks? And to me, you must use that power to help solve the problems that got Donald Trump elected in the first place. Now, you all are Democrats for the most part. How did you react when Donald Trump won in 2016? Tears, groan, sick, nausea, shock. I reacted the same way. I said, oh my gosh, the country just decided to take a bet on the narcissist reality TV star as our president. And though I was shocked, we all had family members, friends, and neighbors who celebrated his victory. And I know that's true for all of you because Donald Trump won Iowa by more than 8 points. You have to ask, how the heck is that possible that he won the purplest of purple states, Iowa, by that much? If you were to turn on cable news at any point in the last several years, why would you think that Donald Trump is our president today? Russia. Hillary. Emails. Fox News. Deep state. Conspiracies. Racism. Ignorance. All of this been mashed together into some kind of toxic brew and said this is why. But I'm a numbers guy, as you can tell from the math lapel pin. And the story as to why he's our president is clear in the numbers. That we blasted away 4 million manufacturing jobs over the last number of years. And where were those jobs? Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Missouri, and more than 40,000 right here in Iowa. I have been to those towns here in Iowa, and after the manufacturing plant closed, the shopping district closes, people leave, the school shrinks, that community never recovers. I have seen that same story play out in Missouri, Ohio, Michigan. Over the last 7 years, running Venture for America, a nonprofit I started in 2010. And I have to say, first I just want to give a shout out to my wife, because I was a pretty normal guy when I decided to start Venture for America. I was like, hey, how about I quit my job, start a nonprofit, and run around the country, try to help people grow businesses. She was a good sport about that. She was an even better sport when I, 7 years later, was like, hey, how about I run for president of the United States? And occasionally someone thanks me for running for president, and I say, thank my wife, because one, she let me run in the first place, and number two, she's been sacrificing much more than anyone else while I've been away. So I started Venture for America, and I saw firsthand what happened in these manufacturing towns, and I saw that it led Trump to become our president, where if you draw a line between industrial automation in a voting area and the movement towards Trump, it's like a straight line up to the right, if you look at the data. Unfortunately, what we did to those manufacturing jobs, we're now going to do to retail jobs, call center jobs, fast food jobs, and on through the economy. How many of you noticed stores closing around where you work in this part of Iowa? Stores closing? Why are the stores closing? Online shopping. In a word, Amazon. Amazon soaking up $20 billion in business every single year, causing 30% of your stores and malls to close forever. Most common job, ooh, loud. Most common job in our country is retail clerk. Average retail clerk is a 39-year-old woman making between $8 and $10 an hour. What is her next move when the store or mall closes? How much did Amazon pay in federal taxes last year? Zero. That is your math. 20 billion out, 30% of your stores close, you get zero back. You've all seen the self-serve kiosks in the CVS, the grocery store, the fast food restaurant, but it's not just the obvious changes we can all see in front of our eyes. When you all call the customer service line of the big company and you get the bot or software, I'm sure you do the same thing I do, which is you pound 000, say human, representative, until you get someone on the line, right? Raise your hand if that's what you do. Oh yeah, we all do that because we hate that software, it's terrible. But in 2 or 3 short years, the software is going to sound like this. Hello Andrew, how's it going? What can I do for you? It'll be fast, seamless, delightful, a little bit overly friendly, perhaps. What is that going to mean for the 2.5 million Americans who work at call centers right now, making between $10 and $14 an hour? The rubber is really going to hit the road when the robot trucks hit our highways. How many of you know a truck driver here in Iowa? 3.5 million truckers in this country. And my friends in California are working on trucks that can drive themselves. They say they're 98% of the way there. If you doubt that this is coming, a robot truck just transported 20 tons of butter from California to Pennsylvania 3 weeks ago, free of human intervention. Why butter? I have no idea. But if you Google robot butter truck, you'll see. Maybe they had a big stack of pancakes. What is this going to mean for the 3.5 million truckers or the 7 million Americans who work at truck stops, motels, and diners that rely upon the truckers getting out and having a meal every day? How many of you have been to Iowa 80 and Davenport? It says 5,000 people stop there every day. What will that number be when the trucks don't have drivers? This is the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, what experts are calling the Fourth Industrial Revolution. When's the last time you heard a politician say Fourth Industrial Revolution? 3 seconds ago. And I'm barely a politician. So I was seeing all of this in 2017. Trump wins. I have a, oh my gosh, I should really dig into why he won. I see the information, I see, okay, Fourth Industrial Revolution, 4 million manufacturing jobs accelerating, 30% of stores and malls closed, most common jobs in our country are going to disappear. And I went to our leaders in DC and I said to them, what are we going to do to help our people manage this transition? And what do you think the folks in DC said to me when I said, what are we going to do?
Did you use Tax Act to deduct your gambling losses, and now you're starting to sweat?
Well, it's perfectly legal, so don't call us.
Full house!
So the 3 answers I got out of DC were, number 1, we can't talk about this. Number 2, we should study this further. And number 3, we must educate and retrain all Americans for the jobs of the future. How many of you heard someone say something like that last month, right? Educate, retrain all Americans, jobs and peace. It sounds pretty good, but I'm the numbers guy. I said, hey, I looked at the studies. You all want to guess how effective government-funded retraining programs were for the manufacturing workers who lost their jobs in the Midwest? 10%, that's a very good guess. I anchored you low, because it is low. Real number is 0 to 15%. They're a total dud. The reality is half of those manufacturing workers who lost their jobs never worked again. And of that group, half filed for disability. You then saw a surge in suicides and drug overdoses in those communities to the point where America's life expectancy has now declined for the last 3 years in a row. You all know the last time America's life expectancy declined 3 years in a row? World War II is a very good guess, but you have to go back further than that.
Stop there.
The Spanish flu of 1918, a global pandemic that killed millions. That's the last time America's life expectancy declined like this. It's highly unusual in a developed country for your life expectancy to ever decline. Ordinarily, you get richer, stronger, healthier, and everything just keeps on edging up. But here in the U.S., we've gone down and then down and then down again. So when I said this to the folks in D.C., they said, well, I guess we'll get better at retraining then. And then just went back to what they were doing. And one person said something that brought me here to you all today. He said, Andrew, you're in the wrong town. No one here is going to do anything about this, because fundamentally this is a town of followers, not leaders. And in order for us to do anything about this, you would have to create a wave in other parts of the country and bring that wave crashing down on our heads. I said, challenge accepted. I'll be back in 2 years. Because that conversation was 2 years ago, and here we are. Woo! You all are part of that wave that will rewrite the rules of the 21st century economy to work for us, to work for you, to work for our families, to work for people. I'm here now, totally anonymous a year ago, and now I'm fifth in the polls to become the Democratic nominee and rising very, very fast. My campaign raised $16.5 million last quarter in increments of only $35 each. So my fans are almost as cheap as Bernie's. But there are an awful lot of them. Zero corporate PAC money. No wine caves.
This is it.
No offense to anyone. All grassroots, people-powered donations. Because this is our chance to retake our government and make it work for us. Most Americans look up and they see the government pipes as clogged full of lobbyist cash, millions and millions of dollars, and they despair there's nothing they can do about it. They're generally right, there's nothing they can do about it. It's up to you all to flush the pipes clean. In 4 weeks. That's the magic. That's the power. So the question is, how will we rewrite the rules to work for you? If you're here today, you heard at some point that there's a man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. Remember when you heard that? And the first time you heard it, I know you thought that's a gimmick, that will never happen, this is too good to be true. But this is not my idea and it's not a new idea. Thomas Paine was for this at the founding of our country, called it the citizen's dividend for all Americans. Martin Luther King fought for this in the 1960s, and it is what he was fighting for when he was killed in 1968. I know this in part because I sat down with Martin Luther King's son in Atlanta, and he said this is what his father was fighting for when he was assassinated. It was so mainstream in the 60s that 1,000 economists, including Milton Friedman, one of the fathers of modern economic theory, endorsed this plan. It passed the U.S. House of Representatives twice in 1971 under Richard Nixon, and then 11 years later, one state passed a dividend where now everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that? And how do they pay for it? And what is the oil of the 21st century? Technology, software, AI, self-driving cars and trucks. A study just came out that said that our data is now worth more than oil. How many of you saw that study? How many of you got your data check in the mail last month? If our data is somehow now worth billions of dollars, where is all that money going? That's right. Facebook, Amazon, Google, Apple, and the trillion-dollar tech companies that are paying zero or near zero in taxes. Do you see how this works, Iowa? You get sucked dry, your neighborhoods get depleted, your stores close, the biggest winners in this economy pay nothing. That is what you're here to change. That's what you're going to use your power for. Jeff Bezos is worth $115 billion today, post-divorce. Do we think it's appropriate that his trillion-dollar tech company pays less in taxes than everyone who's here today? Is that Amazon's fault? No, that's our fault. We have to be pretty dumb to let them get away with paying zero in taxes. If we get our people our tiny, tiny fair share of every Amazon sale, every Google search, every Facebook ad, eventually every robot truck mile and AI work unit, we can easily afford $1,000 a month for everyone in our country. Particularly because when this money is in your hands, where will it go? How will you spend it? How much of it will stay right here in Iowa? Most of it. Not all of it. You might get your own Netflix password instead of sharing all the time. But most of the money would go to car repairs you've been putting off, and daycare expenses, and Little League signups, and this coffee shop, and local nonprofits, and maybe Democratic Party dues, and religious organizations. This is the trickle up economy, from our people, our families, and our communities up. This would give every American, particularly those in rural areas or places that are getting blasted by automation, a real path forward. This is the economy you can create and make real in just 1 month. And this money, as it makes you and your family stronger, healthier, mentally healthier, improves people's decision making, improves people's optimism. You just heard from Kyle Christensen, right? And Kyle is, where'd Kyle go? Did he already drive away and do something?
Watching the live stream.
Oh, that's cool. So Kyle's one of maybe 15 or 14 or 13 families around the country we're giving $1,000 a month to. And there's an abstract argument you can make and be like, hey, everyone should have this foundation. And then when you see it in real life with Kyle and his mom, or Jody Fassey and her daughter, or Mallory Shannon, or all of these families around the country, you see that $1,000 a month is a game changer for many of us, because it helps take the boot off of our throats and gives people a chance to breathe and think more clearly, make the kind of decisions that they want to make, do the kind of work that they want to do. Right now we're getting beaten over the head with the fact that things are great in our economic measurements. GDP record highs, corporate profits record highs, stock market prices record highs, headline unemployment record lows, and yet we have this sinking feeling that things are not great. Corporate profits are at record highs, yes. You know what else are at record highs right now in the United States of America? Suicides, drug overdoses, stress, mental illness, student loan debt, financial insecurity. You know what are record lows in the United States? Starting a business, getting married, having children. Anything that's a sustained act of optimism is now at record lows in the United States of America. If you have record high corporate profits and your life expectancy is going down, which do you listen to? We know which one DC is listening to. DC can't even see the people. All they can see is the corporate profits. Washington, D.C. today is the richest city in our country. What do they produce? That's a thinker, right? Whatever they produce, business is awfully good. Donald Trump said he wanted to drain the swamp. I want to do something different. I want to distribute the swamp. Why are we employing hundreds of thousands of people in the most expensive city in our country? We should be moving those agencies and personnel and jobs to Iowa, Ohio, Michigan, Florida. It would save us billions of dollars immediately because the cost would be much lower. And I would argue that their decisions would be better because they would live someplace normal among people as opposed to in the DC bubble. So we have these economic measurements that are leading us off a cliff, and we need to redefine them very, very quickly. Robot trucks will be great for corporate profits and GDP, but they'll be terrible for many Americans. What we have to do is start measuring how we're doing by how we're actually doing. Things like our health and life expectancy, the ability to retire in quality circumstances, and this freedom dividend stacks on top of Social Security because we know you cannot retire on Social Security benefits, and this would give Americans a real chance to retire in quality circumstances. How our kids are doing, clean air and clean water, mental health and freedom from substance abuse, these are the real numbers that we should be measuring our progress with, and as your president, I would change our measurements to these numbers and then present them to you every year at the State of the Union. I'd be the first president to use a PowerPoint deck at the State of the Union. And I know how wrong these numbers are in part because of my own family. My wife is at home with our 2 boys, one of whom is autistic. What is her work included at in our economic measurements every day or every year? 0. And it's not just her and stay-at-home parents here in Iowa and around the country. It's people like Kyle who are taking care of ailing loved ones. It's nurturers, it's volunteers, it's coaches and mentors, it's artists most all of the time, it's journalists increasingly. We have zeroed out 2,000 local newspapers in this country, causing local news deserts all over the country. And I'm going to ask you all, how can you have a functioning democracy if you don't...
Guys, I have to say right quick. I know you guys see this on the screen. 35 minutes ago, this guy just said we got screwed in this one precinct. So they didn't even tell us when the first alignments happened. No speech allowed. Nobody told them anything. When did it happen? They never let us know the count or announced anything. We were still filling out top 1 and top 2 choices. Fraudulent. If anybody is out there in Iowa right now, or anybody knows anybody in Iowa right now, tweet, message, call your friends, let them know to stay on their toes for stuff like this. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, our president-elect here, so let me go ahead and get him back on the screen.
The folks in New Hampshire are waiting for the baton. I was just there. There's a lot of enthusiasm and energy around this message in New Hampshire, but you have to make the case for it to the country on February 3rd by caucusing for it. Donald Trump is our president today because he had a very clear set of ideas. He said he was going to make America great again. What did Hillary Clinton say in response? America's already great. Remember that? It's been a long 3 years, I know. But it is about to come to an end. Yes. That response did not work because the problems are real. The suffering is real. How many of you all are parents like me? If you're a parent like me, you've had this sinking feeling for quite some time that our kids are inheriting a future that is not as bright as the lives that we have led as their parents. I don't want to, you don't have to acknowledge that, but you've all thought that, I know, because I'm a parent and I've thought that. And that is true in the numbers. If you were born in this country in the 1940s, first, congratulations. But if you were born in the 1940s in this country, there's a 93% chance that you're going to be better off than your parents were. That's the American dream. That's what brought my family here. That's what's worked for this country for so long. If you were born in the 1990s, which I sense that some of you were, you're down to a 50-50 shot and it's declining fast. That is why we feel the way we do, because we are leaving a future that is far darker for our kids than they deserve. I'm running for president not because I dreamt about being president of the United States. I'm running for president because, like so many of you here in this room today, I'm a parent and a patriot. I have seen the future that lies ahead for our kids, and it is not something I'm willing to accept. They deserve better than this. Woo! And you alone in the entire country can change it. You and you alone can rewrite the rules of this 21st century economy to work for our children, so you can look them in the eyes and say, we did all we could. Donald Trump made this simple case that he was going to make America great again, and he was right about the problems. The problems are real. But his solutions were the opposite of what we need. What were his solutions? Build a wall, turn the clock back, bring the old jobs back. Iowa, we need to do the opposite of these things. We need to turn the clock forward. We have to accelerate our economy and society to rise to the real challenges of this time. We have to evolve in the way we think about ourselves and our work and our value. I am the ideal candidate for this job because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thanks very much. Thank you so much. I'd like to take some questions. Yes?
You said about our fourth industrial revolution and how Washington's not addressing it. Aside from this $1,000 a month, what would be your plan to address this? How do we move forward and find jobs for all these people who are losing jobs?
Thanks for the question. I did write a book about a whole suite of things that we need to do, but I'm going to give you the high-level version. Number one, this $1,000 a month, it's not just for individuals. If you imagine this town with an extra $1,000 a month, how many people live in this town? 3,200. So let's say there was another $32 million in disposable income flowing through this town every day. And it was going to this coffee shop, the garage, the daycare center, the tutoring service, the nonprofit. Then each of these businesses might need to hire another person or two. You end up creating jobs right where people work and live. And you also end up spurring creativity and entrepreneurship, because someone would be much more likely to start something new if there was an extra $32 million circulating through the economy, and they knew that if their business did not work out, they wouldn't starve to death. They'd be okay. So the freedom dividend is a huge foundation for a different kind of economy that actually resembles our community's needs and values. But we can't stop there. We have to do more. You redefine our economic measurements so that people can see what the real problems are, and you see that we're in a mental health crisis, we're in a wellness recession, and then you start trying to solve those problems in a meaningful way. You reform our educational system so that people have access to the kinds of opportunities that will exist for a long time. We have to stop pretending that college is for everyone in this country. Only a third of Americans are going to go to college. We need to invest in technical trade vocational programs at the high school level. Right now, only 6% of American high school students are in a technical or vocational track. In Germany, that percentage is 59. Think about that gulf. And these are among the most resilient jobs that are going to be with us for years. Can you imagine what it would take to have a robot plumber or a robot HVAC repair person?
A robot child care provider?
A robot child care provider? Yeah, those jobs will be with us for a long time. So if we invest in those vocational programs, then we can prepare people for an economy that will be with us for decades to come. So those are some of the big moves I would make, but it starts with redefining our economic measurements to revolve around us and not the corporate bottom line. And I'll give you a couple of anecdotes. I spoke to 70 CEOs in New York City, and I asked them how many were looking at replacing their back office clerical workers with software and AI. Guess how many hands went up out of 70? All 70. Because if they didn't have their hand up, they could be fired the next quarter. Every CEO's incentives are just to maximize the bottom line, and the bottom line and our communities are now diverging in dramatic ways, and we have to line them up as quickly as possible. But thanks for the question. It's the right one. Sir?
How do you propose getting cooperation to do these things? How are you going to get the people, the haves, to cooperate so that the have-nots can
If you didn't hear, he said, how can we get everyone to cooperate in this vision and get the haves to care about the have-nots was what he concluded with. So I'm not the only person who's looked at the numbers in our economy and concluded we need to change something very, very dramatically. Anyone else has looked at it and said the same thing? Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, biggest bank in the country. He looked at the numbers and said we should declare a national emergency around the fact that the U.S. economy is not working for most Americans. And then he said we should have a negative income tax, which is an income floor for all Americans. Does that sound familiar? So this is not the far-out futurist Asian man candidate. Like, this is like the CEO of JP Morgan Chase who looked at the same numbers and made the same conclusion. If you imagine a country where we all have an extra $12,000 a year to spend, is that good for JP Morgan Chase? Is that good for Amazon? Is that good for AT&T? Like, all of the companies actually win if we get this money into our hands. It creates a virtuous cycle. It's bad for them if the middle class disappears in this country, which it is. So if you look at my plan, there are many people who are at the top of the economic ladder who concluded that this is the right approach. I've been endorsed by Elon Musk and many of like the prominent tech CEOs, and you would think that some of them would be like, wait a minute, like, you know, this might mean money out of my pocket. But they're smart enough to see that this is a win for everyone. And the greatest thing, it's a win for us, our families, our communities, because all the money would flow through our hands and make us stronger, healthier, better educated, and everything else that we want. The big guys don't lose through this. You have a follow-up?
Well, I was just wondering, you think that unions are obsolete? Because we wouldn't really need unions if business owners and people with money would cooperate. And that's the only reason there's a middle class anyway, is because of unions. I'm speaking from experience.
I agree. Unions have been an historic force for good in terms of worker treatment and compensation and benefits. The middle class may not exist at all if not for unions. I'm pro-union. This money in our hands actually strengthens workers' ability to negotiate. And I know this because this plan was championed by a guy named Andy Stern, who used to run the biggest labor union in the country, the SEIU. And he said that if you had this money in workers' hands, all of a sudden every union could negotiate much, much harder, because they know if they do end up calling a strike, then people can go home and not feel like they're going to eat into their savings like as quickly. That you actually can survive for longer if push comes to shove. Unions have been an historic force for good, like a fortress against a storm, but the fact is the fortress has shrunk over the last number of years and the storm has gotten stronger. So this is the game changer for workers' rights and empowerment that will enable the fortress to start growing again.
Question?
Sure.
Hi, Mr. Yang. I appreciate your very creative financial economic policies, very outside the box, very welcome. But what would you do with the mess that's been created with the Iran problem and our shooting from the hip president we've got right now?
I was one of the candidates who just immediately called this out as a grievous mistake, because 78% of Americans want nothing to do with a war in Iran. What does our Constitution say? It will be an act of Congress to declare war. And unfortunately, Congress has ceded that authority to the president over the last 19 years with the AUMF. It's why we've been in a constant state of armed conflict for almost 2 decades and counting. As your president, I would pull us back from the brink of war in Iran. I would repeal the AUMF and say it is for Congress to declare war, as was framed in the Constitution. I've signed a pledge to end the forever wars because I know Americans do not want to be in a constant state of armed conflict. We spent over $1 trillion in Iraq, $6 trillion in the Middle East, and I've talked to hundreds, even thousands of veterans who've struggled with health issues and PTSD and finding a path forward after they return. We have to stop paying this price and use these resources to make our communities stronger and more whole, and then invest in diplomacy and our historic partnerships and alliances abroad. It was James Mattis who said that if you spend more on diplomats, you spend less on ammunition, and that is exactly where I would lead us as president. You look like a reporter.
Hi, my name is Lauren Tarudia, and I'm with USC Annenberg Media. So we are actually, there are some Californians here today.
You're welcome.
So I don't know if your count might have to go a little bit down, but I wanted to ask you if you thought that your healthcare plan of Medicare for All is a little bit confusing to some voters, just because it's very different than the Medicare for All that Senator Sanders presents.
Thanks for the question, Lauren, and I welcome you from California as well.
Thank you.
I know we all do. I'm for universal health care. We should have health care as a basic right of citizenship in this country. The main way I differ from Bernie and Elizabeth on this is I would not legislate away private insurance. I think that millions of Americans enjoy their plans, and many through unions ended up negotiating away wages in order to have better health care benefits. So to me, it has to be for the government to provide this insurance coverage to the public and then demonstrate that it's better than private plans over time to consumers. But our current plan is not working, our current healthcare system is not working because it's not designed to make us stronger and healthier. We're spending $3.6 trillion on our healthcare, twice as much as other countries, to worse results. And the system is not designed to make us stronger, it's designed to make money for the drug companies, the device companies, the private insurance companies. It does a great job of those things. Has anyone here ever gotten a letter from their private insurance company, great news, your rates are going to be lower this year? No American has ever gotten that letter. Because their business model is just to ratchet up prices every single year, and it's reached such an extreme that it's breaking our backs. It's the #1 cause of bankruptcy. On the economic front, it keeps us from changing jobs, certainly makes it 10 times harder to start a business, because if you don't have health care, how are you going to ever go off on your own? So this is what we need to change. We need to get our health care off of the backs of families and then free us up to do the kind of work that we want to do. And I'm the numbers guy. Anyone who talks about like how are you going to pay for this doesn't know what they're talking about, because we're already paying for it. We're paying for it through the nose, higher prices, every job's a temp job because no one wants to give you benefits. There's so many prices baked into the current way we do healthcare that we can't help but save money as long as we get in there and have the government fighting for lower costs and higher access. On the prescription drug front too, this is one of the things that voters talk to me all the time, like why the heck are prescription drugs so expensive? Why are we paying 2, 3, 4 times as much for our drugs as citizens of other countries for the same drugs that we help subsidize? And the reason we are paying so much for it is that the lobbyists are so powerful that they have kept our government from negotiating for lower prices on behalf of the American people. I don't know if you all knew that. So I've got a 5-part plan to get the prescription drug prices down. Number 1, of course the government has to be able to negotiate for lower prices on our behalf. Number 2, companies cannot charge us more than they charge citizens of other countries. Very reasonable. Number 3, if they fail at number 2, we can forcibly license that drug. And number 4, we have a public manufacturing facility where we can manufacture that drug. Number 5, we're allowed to import drugs from other countries. Do you think this plan would bring prices down? Yes. This is the only way we can bring prices down because the drug companies only understand one language, and that's dollars and cents. You can stand outside their buildings every day and say, do the right thing, and it would not matter. They're going to get paid tens of millions of dollars to gouge us. And I know they're gouging us because I had a friend who's a financial genius look through the numbers of these companies and the businesses, and she said she has never seen profiteering and price gouging at this level in her life. And that it's so unsustainable. She said she's now going to bet against those companies and support my campaign for president to try and make it right.
Sir, according to your wiki page, your parents met at Berkeley?
Yeah, that's right.
And they're both from Taiwan? Mm-hmm. I would think that that would give you a unique perspective growing up as an Asian American in terms of looking at the whole American promise. Could you talk about that?
I've never gotten that question, but I quite love it. So my parents met as graduate students at UC Berkeley in the 60s. My father went on to get his PhD in physics. When I was a kid, I thought that everyone's dad had a PhD. So I was walking around being like, what's your dad's PhD in? And then someone was like, this is what his PhD was in. So we learned. So I grew up one of the lone Asian kids in my upstate New York town. And this was the 80s, so there were only 3 TV networks, and then we had the 4th box, you know, remember that? And so there was like a bit of an American culture that I always wanted to join. And whenever there was an Asian American on TV, I would jump up and down and run and get my family and be like, look, like someone Asian on TV. And it was always Connie Chung. And my parents got kind of tired of getting dragged to see Connie Chung on TV. So, I love this country because it's given so much to my family and me. And my parents immigrated here to create a better future for me and my brother, and it totally worked. I mean, I'm... running for president, so there's that. But my brother's a professor, you know, like I now have a niece and 2 beautiful boys. And I feel like my family also gave as good as it got to this country, and here's what I mean. So my father ended up generating 69 US patents for GE and IBM over his career. And when I was old enough to know what a patent was, I went to my dad. I was maybe like 13 or 14. I was like, "Ooh, how much do you get paid when you generate a patent?" I was like waiting for like a big amount. And then he said, "I get paid about $200. And I was like, "That doesn't seem like very much." And he said, "I also get a salary so I can feed, house, and clothe you and your brother." And I said, "Oh, I understand the deal now." But I say this because I feel like that was a good deal for the country. Because my dad generated 69 US patents for 2 great American companies over his career. And it was a great deal for my family. Everyone won. So this is the American dream in action, and we have to let people know that this is still the place you want to come if you want to start a life, have a family, start a business, do all these things that keep our country dynamic and competitive. If we lose that, then we're going to really lose the edge that has helped to fuel this country over the last number of decades. And as your president, it will be my pleasure to make the case to the rest of the world that this is still the place to be to live the American dream. And that if you come here, your son or daughter could wind up being president of the United States.
Not just around the country, but around the world. And I celebrate you for it. I think you should have a certain standard for the candidate you caucus for tonight. That candidate has to be here to personally address you. Because how else would you know that they care about you, that they're fighting for you? In all seriousness, I've got to know the other candidates over the last number of months on the trail. They're great public servants, true patriots. They want to do right by you and your families. They'd all be a quantum leap and improvement over the current president of the White House. I believe that I have a unique and distinct perspective on why Iowa has gone from purple to going to Trump by almost 10 points in 2016. I think that your economy is transforming beneath your feet. It started with the farms, went to the factories, now it's on your main streets, eventually will be on your highways. I have a clearer sense of it than the other candidates, and I have a clearer sense on what we have to do to actually move our communities and our country forward. Now, you have one big criteria for the nominee, and what is that? That's right, beat Donald Trump. And the people that are putting money on head-to-head matchups have me as the heaviest favorite to beat Donald Trump. I'm 3-2, everyone else is at best even money. And the reason for that is that 18% of college Republicans would choose me over Donald Trump. 10% of Trump voters in New Hampshire said they would choose me over Donald Trump. And you know who's figured this out, West Des Moines? Donald Trump. Because I'm the only candidate in the field he has not tweeted a word about. Because he knows I'm better at the internet than he is. So if you'd like someone in the White House fighting for you and your family that wants to actually make this future, this 21st century economy,
And so I'm an entrepreneur, and one of the things I'm most passionate about is that people aren't able to start businesses or farms anymore. That a couple of generations ago, you might have started a business, but now we talk about how the internet is enabling entrepreneurship. It's not. Like 2 generations ago, you might have opened a flower shop or a hardware store or a local toy store, but now none of those things make sense. Because Amazon's there just hovering over things, being like, hey, if you want to sell something, I'll just undersell you immediately. And so we have to create a real pathway for people to be able to start businesses and farms and do the kind of work that they want to do. And it's not going to happen on its own, because the market is becoming more and more extreme and winner take all. And this is driving our culture, this is driving our politics, this is driving a lot of our biggest problems right now. Miss?
Can you talk about your value-added tax, how that implementation?
Sure, so the way we get the money from the Amazons and the Facebooks and the Googles of the world is you have to look around at the rest of the world. A lot of the other countries have looked at the same pattern and said, how do we make sure that we don't have our biggest companies paying zero back into the economy? And so what they did is they set up something called a value-added tax, which is like a toll at the point of sale that the company can't avoid. And one of the things I love about a value-added tax, you can ratchet it up on things that you want to target. Let's call it artificial intelligence, yachts, and luxury watches. And then you can ratchet it down or even exempt things that everyday people consume. Let's call it diapers and milk and toilet paper. And so then you can target things that you know are being consumed by the people who have the most or the companies that have the most. Right now, our biggest companies are playing games with our income tax system. I'm going to use a couple of examples just for fun. So I just commented that Jeff Bezos is worth $115 billion, which he is. If I were to ratchet the income tax up to 75, 80%, how much of his $115 billion would I get next year? Zero, because he's not dumb enough to pay himself $10 billion a year. Like he just pays himself, let's call it $10 million a year, and then he has all these billions like sitting around in Amazon Holdings. So if you have this value-added tax, you get the money from his $1 trillion tech company while it's coming in. And then when he takes $1 billion out of his wealth every year to buy rocket ships to Mars, which is what he does, by the way, you could have a big value-added tax on rocket ships to Mars. And then you take that money, put it into our hands, make us stronger, healthier, and more excited about the future. That is the plan. There was a joke that Willie Sutton, the bank robber, told. He said, why did I rob the banks? Because that's where the money is. We have to go to where the money is going, Iowa. The money's not staying here in your communities, and it's wrong. We have to go get it, return it to you, and everyone will win. Over there, I feel like I don't know, they just start smiling at me. So yeah, go ahead.
Hi, what kind of policies or programs are you going to enact in order to help communities, farmers, just regular citizens be able to deal with climate change and the emerging effect that's happening where we're having worsening storms, which is affecting our crops each year, which is, we're also going to be having sea level rise, we're having just an assortment of things that are honestly going to affect the lowest people first, the worst, and then just going to keep going up.
How many of you all are concerned about climate change? Yes. You don't have your hand up. I don't know what to tell you. The biggest frustration I have is when politicians talk about climate change as something in the future we must prevent. Climate change is already here. Climate change has been with us for years. The last 4 years have been the 4 warmest years in recorded history. You all experienced historic floods that were fueled by climate change. How many of you saw the images from the wildfire in Australia right now? Does that look normal to you all? That looks like a scene right out of The Day After Tomorrow, one of those science fiction movies. And unfortunately, we know what movie you like. If you think about how much carbon is in that plume of smoke, that's like the biggest exhaust pipe we've ever seen out of Mother Nature. So climate change is here with us right now, and instead of pretending we're going to prevent it, we have to start investing hundreds of billions of dollars to make our communities stronger and more resilient and safer right now. It will save us money anyway because it's cheaper to build a more resilient infrastructure than it is to clean up after the disaster. And this is one thing I cannot believe Trump got right. I thought at least he would build bridges and roads and infrastructure just so he could put his name on them. I was willing to accept Trump Highway just to have the highway, or the bridge, or the levee, or the seawall, or whatever it was. But he just left us more to do. So we have to start making these investments immediately, and not leave communities on your own. Because like you said, it's the poorest among us who are going to get hurt the most. We do need to move towards renewable sources of energy, wind and solar, and then subsidize that not just here, but in other parts of the world. But realistically, this country is only 15% of carbon emissions. So even if we were to go to zero tomorrow, the world would continue to warm. So we have to stop pretending that we can prevent it and start acknowledging that we're on the curve right now and help make our communities stronger, safer, more resilient. It would create hundreds of thousands of new jobs to invest in our communities, and we should do so immediately. I think it's selfie time. I think that's right. We're going to do some selfies. Let's make history together in 4 short weeks. Thank you all so much.
Establishment of the Democratic Party, but you have worked with a lot of the establishment players, fair to say. Does Senator Sanders' nomination, does that terrify the establishment, or will they rally around him?
Well, I don't speak for the establishment. However, you know, I think that most people in this race, I think everybody in this race has said that they will be for whoever the nominee is. And I think that will largely be true across the party. I think the desire to beat Donald Trump is so strong that there will be a coalescing of whoever comes out of this race. I can't say that will be 100% across the board. I don't know yet. It's way too early to tell. Depends how this race ends up. You know, we were talking about how the glove stayed on in the primary process so far. That may not be true a month from now, particularly as this race narrows. So we need to see where we end up, and hopefully the party will unify and get behind whoever comes out of it.
Yeah, Alex, you wanted to jump in on that. I see you had some thoughts.
I think Bernie Sanders had the most remarkable moment in this entire race so far, and that is when Ocasio-Cortez and the squad endorsed Bernie Sanders. Remember, at that point, Bernie was behind Elizabeth Warren. It was
right after the heart attack,
He was in the heart attack. He was socialist emeritus, right? He'd had his impact already on the race. Everybody in the Democratic Party was, you know, some form of Medicare for all, and then Bernie was rejuvenated. Bernie got the one thing he didn't have, which was a future. Oh, he became the Pied Piper to Ocasio-Cortez and this new, young, hot generation of young, hungry Democrats in the party. You see it there in those numbers. Young voters, he's on fire. Plus 65, he's 5, 8, 10%, nothing. So he's got a future. What that means going forward is, how do you shut down the youth in your own party? How do you...
Within 3 months, facing at least 7 indictments.
What's do you really want to make this decision go down to a coin toss?
Now that sounds like kind of bullshit. Republicans suspense.
What? Coin tosses?
Hey, coin toss is 50-50 shot, yo. That's statistics. That's something that Yank would behind.
There's no passion behind a coin toss.
There's a ton of passion behind the coin toss. You ever seen the Super Bowl?
Yeah, you see all those Latino women in the community that was represented? That was badass. Bernie's the only person who wants to eradicate ICE to help those people get these families out of cages. No one else is saying that they will do that. And that is a concentration camp which we have created. And Bernie is the only one who is going to stop that. Why do you need that? I don't think so. They are literally in cages. What do you mean? They're literally in cages. I'm sorry, you can't see through your privilege. I don't know. Yeah, that'd be great. I didn't want to interrupt the actual convincing, persuading, so tell me what was just happening there.
So I was trying to convince some Biden supporters, who are actually my landlords, to come to the Bernie side. They're my landlords. They live right next door to me, so yeah.
So like actual neighbors, this whole thing about convincing your neighbors.
They are, yeah. No, I just took care of their cats for 2 weeks while they were out of town. They are my family, essentially, so.
So what were they saying?
They definitely agree with what Bernie has to say, but they're still undecided. They don't really know. They were so set on Biden, and now they have to choose. I mean, I've talked to them a lot over the past few months, and I know that they agree.
can't do this, we can't do that, we can't give you health care, we can't give you free education. Young people don't want to see that. They want a fighter. They want someone who's going to go out there and get their health care and get their tuition for free. And I think he's been able to rally that. He also, Bernie comes out in a rally and he's really got a lot of energy. He's yelling, he's getting the crowd riled up, and he also has an amazing group of surrogates around him. Not just AOC and the squad, but he's got a lot of great people. Nina Turner, for instance, has been an amazing surrogate for him, out there everywhere getting crowds riled up. So I think that combination has been great for Bernie and the young people within our party.
Yvette, talk to me about Mayor Pete. Could the progressive wing of the party support Mayor Pete if he does well, if he does well in Iowa, does well in New Hampshire, lives to see another day and takes it into Super Tuesday?
I think whoever the nominee is, when we come out of convention, we will all rally together behind that person. As I've said, if that's, Joe Biden, if that's Amy Klobuchar, I've joked and said if that's Mickey Mouse, whoever that person is, we're going to get together and we're going to kick Trump's butt because we know what's at stake now. And so if that's Pete Buttigieg, that's great. I think one of the challenges that Pete has had, which is really interesting, he's the youngest candidate, but he does not have the support of young people. He was so progressive when he first came out. He saw an opportunity as Joe Biden was starting to flail and decided to move more to the middle, more to the right. And he lost the trust of young progressives because he looked like he was selling out. And that's one of the things that is really, really key with Bernie Sanders supporters, with younger and progressive supporters. They want to know that you're going to be there when times get tough, and that when you get in the office, you're not going to sell out. You're going to deliver on the promises that you made. And so I think if Pete Buttigieg is our nominee, he's going to have to do a lot of work to rebuild trust with the progressive left and with younger voters to show that he's actually going to stick with them when he becomes president or when times get tough.
All right, Yvette Simpson, great points. And with that, Stephanie, did too many of the Democrats, or maybe it was the calculation was correct, did too many of the Democrats think that Joe Biden wasn't viable? And she just mentioned Mayor Pete sort of changed his message a little bit. Bloomberg's entering the race. Mm-hmm. We don't know for sure, but clearly it's because of Joe Biden. Did too many Democrats overestimate that? Did they count Joe Biden out too early, you think?
Of the people running?
Yeah.
I think that the reason Mayor Pete got into this race had nothing to do with Joe Biden. As I was saying before, generational change is the primary driver of his message. Mike Bloomberg, there were reports months ago that he stayed out of the race because he didn't want to go up against Joe Biden. And then all of a sudden he's getting in. so he smelled something in the water that made him feel like he could make a good run at it. Like everybody makes their own decision. Iowa is the first contest. It is not the last contest. And, we're hearing anecdotal evidence that Joe Biden is not making viability. We have some reports confirmed in some precincts. This is the beginning. I do think that the party at large, the party has no control over what voters do. And right now, this is really up to voters. If Joe Biden doesn't do well here in Iowa, and that will not translate well for him in New Hampshire, he's going to have a money problem pretty quickly. And he keeps talking about a South Carolina firewall, and he, has great support in South Carolina that is very, very deep. However, that's more than 3 weeks away. 3 weeks is a long time in primary.
So run a national campaign.
Run a national campaign.
If your campaign burns down before you get to the firewall,
the firewall is not going to be there for you.
That's a good point, Alex.
Momentum begets momentum. So this is a very, very fluid race. But what happens in Iowa will impact what happens from here on out.
We have been watching one precinct in a Des Moines suburb. Devin Dwyer's there with some of the results. Devin, walk us through what you just witnessed.
Hey, Tom. Yeah, we're just wrapping up here. We're up, reminder, in Ankeny, Iowa. This is about 25 minutes north of Des Moines. And as you can see behind me, they're just getting ready to close up shop and announce the final results. And here tonight, Pete Buttigieg was the big winner. As the commentators have been saying, obviously this is anecdotal. This is one precinct in a very large state. But this is one of the more populous suburbs of Des Moines. This is an influential purple county, Polk County, the most populous in all of the state. And tonight, Buttigieg, like I said, was the winner. He picked up 57 7 participants here tonight in the second realignment. He drew from Joe Biden, Amy Klobuchar. Almost all of their supporters flocked to Pete Buttigieg. Some of Andrew Yang's supporters went to Bernie Sanders, who of course had a strong showing here with 83 supporters. And Elizabeth Warren surprised a lot of people in this county that I've talked to today. Weren't so confident that she would do very well up here in this purple part of the state. A lot of Republicans and former Republicans here tonight, but she ended up with a support count of 100. 4 people left this caucus. They went home. They weren't happy with the choices, but pretty impressive showing for Pete Buttigieg tonight. We'll see if this is sort of part of that tale that you've been talking about, some of the early data coming in, whether he ends up having a better than expected night across the rest of the state. Tom.
And just a great scene there behind you. You know, voters getting together. They bring their children. No one's wrestling each other. It was all done peacefully. Now they're cleaning up the gym.
More than 2 hours as well on a Monday night. It was pretty crazy.
All right, Devin Dwyer for us. Devin, great job there. We appreciate that. Now, Rick, Devin mentioned they're wrapping up there. They're wrapping up all across the state. And we don't have data yet on votes, but we think we're going to get it pretty soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I've been talking to some of the campaigns on texting and the state party, and it looks like they've held some results that they're holding back because they're quality controlling it. Because they're doing things differently this year, they're using an app. We're here in the 21st century, right? They want to make sure it's exactly right. So I'm expecting data to start flowing in pretty close to now, after the top of the hour, is what the campaigns have been told that the expectation is there. Though I'll tell you one tidbit. I've been talking to people in rival campaigns who were convinced that Bernie Sanders, if his internal data, the information he got from the caucus sites was very good for him, was going to declare victory early on. Come out and say, I won the Iowa caucuses. His people regret not doing that 4 years ago. Hillary Clinton winning by those 0.2 of a point, it let her shape the night. The fact that he hasn't done that yet, these other campaigns are saying, well, maybe this shows that this is a lot closer than the Bernie people thought.
We're gonna talk about that after the next break. But Mike, I want to go to you. That Mayor Pete was the second choice for a lot of these voters from different campaigns. A great sign for him, at least in that precinct.
It's a great sign, and let's see if it carries to the other suburban precincts here in Des Moines. If it does, he's in a very good spot to finish in, maybe not first, but second or third, and that fundamentally changes this race moving forward.
Because, Stephanie, I mean, even if maybe you're not the first choice, but if you're the second choice, it could be better.
Oh, I think that if Pete Buttigieg finishes in the top 3 and it's a close race altogether, I think that propels him to go forward. Absolutely. You know, we were talking earlier, you want to surprise people in Iowa. If you have a surprise here and you're beating your expectations, that is all you need coming out of Iowa. You are one of those tickets coming out.
All right, let's go to the Mayor Pete campaign right now. Marcus Moore, our national correspondent, is there for us covering everything. Marcus, walk us through the night so far. I noticed a change in energy. We see there's people now finally lining up behind you. What do we know about Mayor Pete and where he's watching tonight?
Yeah, definitely high energy here, Tom, at the Bell Center at Drake University, and we know that Pete Buttigieg is at a local hotel here in Des Moines, along with his husband and his mother and mother-in-law, and they are watching the results as they come in, and so far the numbers appear to be good for the Buttigieg campaign and their team, as we see people beginning to file into the headquarters here, where they will watch the results come in, and they expect to hear from the former South Bend, Indiana mayor about his next steps after what they hope will be a good night. And as we've talked about all night tonight, this really is in many ways a make or break moment or night for the Buttigieg campaign. This is a man who just a year ago was relatively unknown on the national stage and now is one of the contenders, and as we have seen with these early numbers, appears to be doing well. His campaign, our embed team, has been in close contact with them tonight and throughout this effort to secure the nomination, and they have been very cautious about their optimism, certainly hoping for a strong finish, but keeping their expectations relatively low, if you will. And so the fact that if there's a chance for them to exceed those expectations, that will be great for them as they try to seize on the momentum and carry that beyond Iowa and into New Hampshire and those early states. So, Tom, we have certainly seen the energy pick up here. A lot of people excited tonight, and I was at their launch, their Canvas launch meeting this morning, and where the former mayor showed up there to amp up the crowd. They are very excited about tonight, and they were eager about getting out into the neighborhoods here in Iowa to continue that push and rise above the challenges he's faced along the way so far.
You were right. It could be make or break for him tonight. He's definitely trying to stay across as we say hello to someone right there from our wonderful staff. It's all right. Anyways, back to our coverage. We're going to go now to Eva Pilgrim. She is at the Joe Biden headquarters right now at the watch party for Joe Biden. Eva, talk to us about the mood there and the energy, because I'm interested. A lot of the anecdotal stuff that we're hearing so far, it's still a very early night, but we've seen a couple precincts where Joe Biden wasn't viable, and that's not the end of the road for him, but what's the sense you're getting?
Well, I mean, you can see behind me, there are people here. It's not overly rowdy, but most of the Joe Biden events that I've been to haven't been overly rowdy. So this is sort of par for the course for his supporters as they come to his events. We've seen a lot of the campaign staff walking around. You see a lot of kind of teeth sucking, like as they watch things come in. And there's a bit of anxiety in the air here, but it's still early in the night. One of the things I wanted to point out to you, when you're going to these Biden events, I noticed some interesting things. First, we were on a couple of college campuses in the last week, and at each of those campuses that we went to, there were really not that many college students or younger people that came to see him speak. Most of the crowd was older, significantly older, and at a couple of events where there were college students behind him, I spoke to those students, and a lot of those students told me that they were still undecided. Now, at some events, we would see whole families, mothers, grandmothers, grandchildren with their great-grandchildren, and you would talk to them. And the thing that a lot of them would say, you would see the older half of the family supporting Joe Biden and the younger half in their 30s or 40s with children of their own saying that they were leaning more towards Pete Buttigieg, really showing this kind of generational divide amongst these institutional-type Democrats.
Eva, you were with Biden and with the other candidates that were here in Iowa while the impeachment trial was going on and the senators weren't able to be here. Was Joe Biden somebody who took advantage of that? Did he add more events to his calendar? Did he try to seize the moment that not everyone was in town in Iowa campaigning on the ground?
He definitely was trying to seize the moment. He had so many campaign stops in the last week, 23 in 9 days, I believe it was. He was crisscrossing the state. There are some key points about this last bus tour. He spent a lot of the time out east, the majority of the time out east with those voters. So I'll be interested to see how those caucus sites perform for him tonight. And he also spent a lot of time that I was with him in rural communities. So that's another area that we should look to see how he performs in. But you have to keep in mind, while Joe Biden was crisscrossing the state of Iowa, so was Pete Buttigieg. And those two are both vying for those moderate Democratic voters. Tom?
Yeah, as we look at the map, Sioux, Woodbury, those counties, see how he did in the far west and far east parts of the state. All right, Eva Pilgrim, we thank you for that. Joining us right now is Sochi Inohosa. She's a DNC communications director. So how's it going tonight? How's it been so far?
It's going well. There's a lot of excitement right now. We have seen a great turnout so far in the caucuses. We are currently doing a quality control check when it comes to our data, and we hope to have results out very, very soon.
So explain that to our voters out there, because not everybody is so savvy with the election data and the way votes are counted, especially in the caucus system, which is so complicated.
Absolutely. So what you normally see in a caucus is some of the smaller precincts and in rural areas start to come in. We have an app that we have this caucus. We actually had it last caucus as well, in order to help caucuses tabulate, to do the math. I am not very good at math, and I'm sure there are many precinct chairs that aren't either. So they are able to put the first alignment, the final alignment, and it does calculate state delegate equivalents as well.
They wanted to be so transparent in Iowa. And what was the reason? Was it because of what happened 4 years ago?
Well, 4 years ago, what happens every 4 years is we take a look at the process and we see what worked and what didn't work. And what we saw is that people wanted more transparency in the process, whether it was reporting the first alignment, whether it's making caucuses more accessible. Now we have a paper trail for the first time. Some people might not be able to believe it, but in case there is a recount or anything like that, now we do have a paper trail. And you can now leave after the first alignment, which is huge for working families right now, because if you you want to go home and make dinner for your family, you just show up, you caucus. If your preference is viable, then you can go ahead and leave. So that is the beauty of the caucuses here. We're trying to make it easier for everyone.
I think 2008 was the last record-breaking turnout here in Iowa. There was some talk that this may be another record tonight. Is there any indication there was a huge turnout?
I'm not sure yet. I'm seeing some great numbers at caucuses on Twitter, and as people are posting, people in the media are in a lot of these caucuses as well. We did see an uptick on iwillvote.com in order to check your precinct location and your caucus location. We saw about 130,000 unique hits over the last 24 hours, which is really big for our party. So we know that people are engaged. We know that people really want to beat Donald Trump, and this is an amazing organizing opportunity for the Iowa Democratic Party.
Why is Michael Bloomberg going to be able to qualify for the next debate?
Well, first of all, Michael Bloomberg hasn't qualified for the next debate. What we did is that when the Nevada debate, which is in a few weeks from now, you'll have two contests, two states that have already voted. And so we're taking into account the votes in those states instead of having a donor threshold. We also have people, you can qualify by meeting a threshold of 10% in the polls. By mid-February, after two contests, you need to be in the double digits or you're not going to be our nominee. So we've been very transparent about the process, and we'll see who qualifies.
But so you think Michael Bloomberg is not going to be at the debate?
We don't know, but he currently hasn't qualified.
All right. What is the Bloomberg effect so far, do you think, on this race? Are you excited that he's entered the race?
I think that will be up to the voters. We'll see how he does. I have yet to see someone who hasn't competed in the first four early states and gone on to do Super Tuesday and try to compete there. But we'll see what happens. I think that the voters right now, there's a lot of enthusiasm to beat Trump, and I think that whoever our nominee is going to be in a strong position to win.
Okay, Sochi Inosa from the DNC Communications here. Sochi, thank you so much
Thanks
for your time.
so much for having me.
I know it's going to be a long night for you. Hopefully not too long. Any estimates on when you think we'll get a winner, or no idea?
I never want to estimate that. I'm just going to have a lot of caffeine for the rest of the night.
All right, that's some good advice. Maybe some good advice for our panel as well. It could be a late night, but the headline out of that conversation was transparency. They want to make sure they know who the clear winner is, and they have the paper trail, and they're going to have 3 sets of numbers.
Yeah, so the Iowa Democratic Party and the DNC went to great lengths this cycle to make this more accessible, more transparent, and I think we're going to see that reflected in turnout, which is also a great sign for the general election here in Iowa. Iowa has been a swing state. President Obama won it, Trump won it by 9. So I think the turnout tonight is a story that we'll be talking about in the days to come. What does that do to the general election map? And you know, we could have a very late night here. It's happened before. We'll get some caffeine in a little bit.
And Stephanie, Sanders has been very clear about this. He says if the turnout is high, we'll win. If the turnout is low, we won't win. Not incredibly scientific, but he said that it's going to be good for him. It was good for then Senator Obama in 2008. A big turnout night. Why would that be good for Sanders?
Because you're bringing new people into the process, and there's excitement and energy driving them. And I think we all have discussed that the energy and the excitement is behind Sanders right now. So the bigger the turnout, the younger the turnout. Younger voters are more sporadic voters. Some of them are probably first-time voters. And if they're coming out for Sanders.
Okay.
One other thing about Sanders, he's not an old candidate. In politics, if you think your voters are young, you're young. And Bernie is change. He's revolutionary. So he gets that young vote. It's like Ronald Reagan. He thought America was ever young. Bernie is kind of that, has a little bit of that too.
All right, when we come back, we're going to go back 4 years ago to the Democratic Iowa caucuses and something interesting that happened at the end of the night. We'll be right back, right after this break.
This is what being live is all about. I can see pushing through. This is ABC News Live.
Neighborhoods are underwater.
But still do good for the country as a whole.
So what did you think? What was your experience at a Democratic caucus as opposed to a Republican one?
Oh, it's a blast. The Democratic caucuses are so much more fun because the Republican caucuses, you literally just write a piece of paper down. Here you have discussion, you have people talking, you have people arguing amongst each other. At the end of the night, it's a fun night.
Good. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. Thank you so much for letting us know about your experience. All right. Thank you. And I think we've got James. I don't know if you guys were watching us earlier, but we have a first-time caucus goer here. First time ever, not just at a Democratic caucus. You're 20 years old. You were 16 in 2016. Tell us how your night went.
I caucused my first round with Pete Buttigieg, and I am extremely excited to see that he won this precinct. I know that we still have results coming in from across the state, but as a gay individual from the state of Iowa, growing up in a really small, really conservative area, seeing someone like Pete, who represents myself, represents the queer community, being able to get up there and be as successful as he was tonight in this precinct was incredibly inspiring and incredibly... I hugged a random person that I met 30 minutes ago, and we were just jumping up and down, and the energy in the room tonight is just amazing.
That's great. I know. I wish, I don't think we had that when it happened, but when they announced in the second realignment round that Buttigieg had by far the most voters to switch, the crowd went crazy. There was just huge, huge cheers for Buttigieg.
Right. We saw Warren...
It makes a difference. And we can end poverty right away. He is the leader that can unite all of us. We cannot stay in our Democratic bubble. We can't. If we want to win in November, we know that from 4 years ago. We have to bring those into bringing those independents. And Yang is doing it. These are a lot of first-time voters, previous Trump voters.
This is painful.
Previous Trump voters, you know, you have to bring them in to win. And why Yang can do that? Yang can do that. So we can change the world. That is just immediately we can do that. And we can. That's fine. Captain, want to speak? Hey. The out of state, Pete, do you want to speak?
Can I have spoken for the young game?
You want to? I was trying to get that shit cooking. Okay. 2 minutes at the most.
The what?
My name is Jane Artman Andrews, and I'm here as somebody who I think Pete needs to be our next president. I have not, the very first time I saw this young man on TV, and I've seen him 4 times in person, I come away more impressed each time. He is intelligent, he is thoughtful, he is experienced, he has experiences that not everybody has. He is a war veteran, he is a Rhodes Scholar, he is exceptional, and he is the new future. He's 38 years old. The world belongs to the 30 and 40-year-olds. They are the ones that need to pick up and move on from here. So please support him. He is your future. All right. Why can I have a volunteer or a caucus goer speak? Does anyone want to have? No. Okay, I'll speak as if you want to vote for and caucus goer, please do. He's wonderful. We love him. He's the vice president. No, this is 1 minute. Huh? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes.
I'm
Get your shit together. Get your shit together. Yes, for 1 minute. You better fucking get up and do it.
Foreign Relations Committee, very good at foreign policy around the world. He also is, I think, the toughest candidate in the race.
Eliza's
he has experience in the toughness to defeat Donald Trump.
And I'm making Matt do a speech.
We welcome you to come caucus and go for the fight.
Woo! Over here! Matt, be aggressive.
I'm representing Senator Bernie Sanders because I'm tired of hearing what we can't do. And I'm tired of hearing what we don't deserve.
Matt.
And I know
Nobody cares
that
about your
when
personal
Bernie
story, just give the
Sanders is in
facts.
White House, he will fight for all of us that have been denied. Everyone outside of that 1%. 4 years ago, Iowa made America believe that change is possible. Real
Sorry,
change,
guys,
like
I'm like
healthcare for
really
all.
intense right
A
now.
livable wage for all. Lowering prescription costs for all. And finally, confronting climate change. But it's not just the issues. It's not. Bernie Sanders is the best candidate to defeat Donald Trump because he has broken records with only small dollar donors. People from Walmart workers, Verizon workers, teachers, and Starbucks workers. He is the most trusted and his record is indisputable. He's been preaching the same thing for 40 years. Join this movement. We need real change now.
Go. Raise your hand. 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 Over here. Over here. Yeah,
Hi,
bro.
everybody. I'm Beth
Go.
Vogel. I was a precinct captain for Obama last time around, and I'm very wholeheartedly behind Amy Klobuchar.
I'm really
And
pushing you
not because
guys.
I think she's the most qualified, and I'm aligned to a lot of her all of her policies. I think we all want climate change. We all want health care. These are all things that we want. Bottom line is, who's going to win? And it's not just people in this room that we need to convince. It's independents. And there's Republicans out there who are sick of Trump too. And those people are going to vote as well. And those people, when they say who they are interested in, when they look at the whole pool, Amy pulls very well against them. So if we want to unite this very divided country, we need to consider who's going to do that. And people from the far left are not going to do that.
Fuck that. I'm not telling Matt to speak from his heart.
59 years old, and she's ready to serve an 8-year, 2 terms as president, and she can do it. She can win. She's run in red counties in her
Just walk
state.
up there and be
She's
like
done it.
me.
She
I
can
need
do
to
it
speak.
again.
Go. Go. Oh my God, you guys.
I want to ask everyone tonight, a little loud, what do you care about most? Defeating Donald Trump, probably. And here's the thing about Andrew Yang. 18% of college Republicans have said that they would vote for Yang over Trump in a poll. 10% of Republicans in New Hampshire said that they would defeat Donald Trump, or vote for Yang over Trump.
Oh, you already spoke. Oh, yeah, but the campaign only gets one time to speak.
Oh, he's an observer.
Sorry about that.
He's an observer. He's an observer.
Well, I can't let everyone in the room have a speech. One speech per candidate. I didn't know that Yang had twice. Does anyone
Still did a good job, though.
anything more to feel like, okay. Now, because in the middle of the first alignment.
Oh my God, I'm the most pushy person ever. You did a good job, Matt. He's still gonna do a good job.
I knew what I was gonna say.
So I
was gonna be like,
I just want to give
that was hilarious.
What's the chat saying?
Did you?
Chat loves it.
Did you really?
That video blackout.
Okay.
Cloak people got so
The chair
pissed.
and the secretary are going to count the numbers and verify to make sure that everybody.
You got in a zinger.
And then I'm going to tell you to sign the first part.
What's the next?
You should have said I'm an observer. Because then it looked like you were from the campaign.
Cards.
That was too good.
am embarrassed.
Why? I'm not going to see these people besides me again. Maybe Trey. And Trey thinks you're lit right now. Sure. I need to smoke some of that.
I don't know what I was gonna say. I'd be like, what do Democrats care most about defeating Donald Trump? And that's like 18% of college Republicans.
Okay, I don't care what you have to say.
Guys have a baby, your wife still gets that $1,000 a month. You still get that $1,000 a month. So that's what it's about. It's about the trust in. If we tax the billionaires, but the government is still getting the money, what good does that do us? Andrew Yang is saying, we're going to tax them, but we're giving $1,000 to you because when we tax them, we're taxing the data that they've taken from you. We're taxing the information that you've given them. We're taxing these corporations that right now pay zero but need to pay more. So that's what excites me and gets me invigorated to caucus with this guy and want him to become president. So like don't give me an hour. The UBI guarantees that if you're married to someone and you guys have a baby, your wife still gets that $1,000 a month. You still get that $1,000 a month. So that's what it's about. It's about the trust in. If we tax the billionaires, but the government is still getting the money, what good does that do us? Andrew Yang is saying, we're going to tax them, but we're giving $1,000 to you because when we tax them, we're taxing the data that they've taken from you. We're taxing the information that you've given them. We're taxing these corporations that right now pay zero but need to pay more. So that's what excites me and gets me invigorated to caucus with this guy and want him to become president. So like don't give me an hour. The UBI guarantees that if you're married to someone and you guys have a baby, your wife still gets that $1,000 a month. You still get that $1,000.
Biden's got way bigger after the split.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Is there, I think this is the last count.
Just go.
I'm not allowed to go.
Oh, you're an adult. God. You guys don't understand what I had to deal with when I deal with Matt. He's like... I am a bully, but you know what? I'm a little bit of a bully, yeah. But I get things done. That's the thing. I get things done. And he was just like waiting to go to the bathroom. I'm like, you're an adult. You don't have to ask someone to leave. We're not held hostage in here. I can't believe I made Matt give a speech, and that's like not what was happening.
Does have 22.
They don't understand that if they
We're trying to make sure that figure out if
that's what I was trying to tell you.
I don't know the groups by
Can we still, for instance, if people here wanted to move to 80 after we count right now, can they still do that?
when we do the realignment. Oh, not if you're correct. I didn't understand what you were saying. We have to establish who is viable. Which candidate has 40 people? So we have to go through each candidate and find out after first alignment which group was viable and which was not.
Second.
And if they're not viable, then they're going to. They will become viable later if they go to a group that becomes viable. You're not disqualified if you're not in a viable group. You can realign. I don't. So I don't understand what you're trying to say.
Surprise, surprise.
Yes, but they have to do it during realignment, and we're not to realignment yet. Okay, I can't let you do it. Okay, just let everybody go sit down.
Can we get a new chair?
Okay, we need to count. I need to find out who's viable and who's not. I'll tell you the rules in a minute. But right now,
Finish the count. Come on, guys. Simple. It's a two-step process.
okay, everybody sit down right now. Everybody sit down.
That's it. 2 steps. It's that simple.
I have the right to eject anyone from this caucus who won't listen to me. I'm trying to count after the first alignment to see who is viable. Then you're going to sign your cards if you're in a viable group. If you're not in a viable group, I'm going to.
I want to be friends with this chick that's over, this Yang girl.
If you don't know what
I want to be friends with that one Yang girl right there.
Continue.
She just turned up a little bit and I'm feeling it.
Yang. And please don't argue. You'll have a chance to have questions.
I know, sorry. I owe you your night back. We don't have 40 people, I can tell you that.
Number 4. Number 5. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Number 9. 10. 11. 12. 13. 14. 15. 16. 17, sir. Thank you.
We only got 17.
If someone leaves,
One of the Yang supporters is leaving.
and the number still counts for the total caucus. If you wait just a few more minutes, I'll get the viable group number.
First step is to.
Normally, the caucus it doesn't convene and leave until 9 o'clock or after.
Oh my god, the Yang supporters turning up. You still did a good job. No, you're good, you're good. Do your thing. Do your thing. No, she's going. She has to pick up her kid.
Yang is representing better than. But it is interesting that in downtown Des Moines, right now, at this one precinct, Yang is representing better than an 8-year vice president. But it is interesting that in downtown Des Moines, right now, at this one precinct, Yang is representing better than an 8-year vice president. But
Assign a spot for each candidate with no support in the room, then ask if there are any candidates who do not have assigned space in D1. Either way, every caucus goer is allowed to align with a group for any candidate on the first alignment. We are not past the first alignment. We're counting to find out how many is in the first alignment to see if they're viable.
10, 11,
don't, because it's been a frustrating night already, and the whole room is getting it, and one person has to grandstand and drag things out even longer. She made a big scene. You guys are videotaping because you're activists or something, and
You're being really disrespectful.
I don't even know you.
I don't know you either, but my suggestion to you would be to treat people like human beings, not like trash.
Right. I didn't say you were trash. I just said that
You're saying she's making a big deal about something. You know, she's trying to pick up your kid and you're giving her shit.
You know, I'm an election judge, and people came into the election and started causing scenes, disrupting everybody, and saying, "Oh no, don't vote for them. You have to do this." That's called election.
You're talking about a lady who had to go pick up.
You have your opinion.
She was disrespectful. And I think you're being an absolute clown about it.
Okay.
That's
Do I make you laugh?
Be cool.
What's the problem? What was the problem?
He's attacking. He was
For
attacking.
what?
I don't know.
She was trying to leave.
Probably was like a man problem.
They don't be cool, man. Activists. It's a good one. I got news for you though. I'm out of here in like 30 minutes. With or without you. You can Uber back to your car. Activists.
So, read the ones that are viable. You have to have 40 to be viable.
Yeah, we're not.
Biden is viable. We're going to start with Yang. So this woman left. But we have to
According
keep
to
her
this
number
guy,
the same.
filming means you're an activist.
So,
There's 726 people watching you give the middle finger to a chat. What's your name, by the way?
My name is Math guy with the math hat.
Okay. Okay, tough guy.
That's the best you got? It's putting me on Facebook.
Facebook. Only you know. I don't even use Instagram, bro.
those are viable groups.
Because he's a douchebag.
Well, yeah, that's obvious. Everybody could hear. It's so embarrassed me. I live here.
Simon.
And you know I got hood tendencies, so I'm not in the mood to get arrested tonight.
The people that were
Although I know Trey got my back, and I've seen Trey get insults. I said Trey would have my back.
We do not complete the whole thing. You're going to only put in your first preference. You're going to put your name, your first, your last name, your voting address, your city, your zip. Your first preference. For the first and last name of the candidate you support, you're the first expression of preference. Sign that front card. Don't flip it over.
This is a hot mess.
Yeah, they don't know what the hell they're doing.
No,
Now,
0% clue.
each group is going to select a preference chair. The groups that are viable are going to select a group chair. This person will be responsible for collecting and reporting information from the group. Preference group chairs will now, we have done that, count and report the numbers to me. We've got that number. I will now announce the numbers of each group. We did that. Remember, in order to be viable, the group needs to have 15% of eligible caucus attendees. In our case, that means 40 people. So,
what?
She just said 30. I thought it was 40.
Biden, where's my sheet with Biden?
What are you doing? You're just shaking in the hands.
Skip ahead. So Pete, Biden, Bernie.
I don't know how this process is
Those
working.
groups signed the first
idea that she didn't make 15% shocked people. And Andrew Yang, now here's two guys then who huddled. Initially, 10, 15 minutes ago, I thought you had a very simple deal. You're going to combine forces, each get one delegate. What's going on now? Because then the Biden people started coming in.
Well, yeah, so, the Yang Gang, Andrew Yang supporters made Warren viable, made her group viable, and so we're splitting delegates with the Warren group. And then we also sent some folks to Yang Gang members to Biden, and we're going to get one of their delegates as well.
So you had 0, and now how many?
We have 2.
And you have?
1, probably.
And you guys just made a handshake deal that you're going to split. You trust this guy?
I do. This man invited me into his home.
He knocked our door.
Yes,
Warren had I had 5 people coming in to knock doors and all this, and he knocks on the door.
Is a great American.
Like getting one for Warren.
Over, and it's pretty evenly split. If that's how it ended up, I don't know. I haven't been over there, but at least the rep for Amy Klobuchar said it's not heavily in Pete's favor. It's a split between Biden and Buttigieg, which may have given him the delegates to breathe a little bit.
And I don't understand why he was singling out a woman who was just trying to pick up her son. I thought he was being a bag. And I speak my mind. I also don't understand how this whole process works.
I think that's the problem. Is there wasn't a good explanation.
And I feel like from the beginning, the chair was being very just rude.
You're missing the good stuff.
So Caucus, bring your Bibles, sign from partnership.
Is Warren viable? Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah. I don't know.
I think you can. I don't know why you can't.
Just pay attention so that we don't lose. We could get.
Chat, 1, if I should go Yang people. 2, if I should stay here.
I mean, okay. What the F am I supposed to be doing?
Oh, I think Warren's viable. People are leaving. People are leaving.
No, go ahead.
All the Klobuchar people decided to join Buttigieg. Weird. Now look, this guy's upset.
And Klobuchar is not violent. They can join.
I'm ready for this to be over. One to Yang people? What? What?
Thinking that lady did.
I have read that
They
maybe
changed.
4 times.
They changed.
Why
the
wouldn't you
rules.
put your first preference down, decide if they're viable, they're not?
It's. I think she. I'm pretty very sure she messed up the rules. I'm gonna go talk to her.
Only people in non-violent groups
can currently in a viable. So if you're currently in a viable group, so if you're a non-viable group, you can join a viable group, join together with other non-viable members to make your one of your groups viable.
You were supposed to write down the first time around. I knew that.
No, that's not right.
I knew that.
If you are in a non-viable group, you can join a viable group, not a non-viable group.
You're really messing up the process.
We were everybody was supposed to put down the first choice. Second choice. We were asking.
Thank you.
Oh, you're sorry. You guys been recording?
We've had the whole event.
Okay.
We've been recording the whole event.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. So glad you guys are here.
I'm kind of not glad I'm here.
Huh?
I got into an argument with some Biden guy because he was being a D-bag.
I know, she's a little child.
Yeah.
This is why I hate the caucus. Wait, I don't think she doesn't know.
She has no clue what she's doing.
But I also think, though, too, she doesn't know what she's doing. She needs not to be talking in the microphone.
If you are in a non-violent group, you can join a viable group. Join together with other non-viable members to make your groups viable.
So you can choose at this point if you want to go to another party or another person. And if you choose not to, that's fine, too.
From what I understood, there's a first alignment and a second alignment. She seems to have done like 3 alignments.
I think the first one was everybody sitting down, and then, you know.
Everybody sit down right now.
Oh, Lord.
Gang, gang, come back! Sit down. Everybody sit down.
It's a shit show, but I was going to keep videoing and catch some good stuff because I feel like it's going to be a fight.
I am filming. So right now, it appears the Warren campaign is very upset. Everyone is upset with the caucus chair here.
I don't know how many times I have to read this. I can reject anyone if you all don't get back in order. I've read this a million times. If you are in a non-viable group, you can join a viable group during realignment. Join a viable group, join together with another non-viable members to make your groups viable. I don't know how many times I have to read that.
Let's talk about the latest developments. There's so many levels to this. We have a CBS News exclusive.
Fires in California. What happens next and how does it all play out?
We are on a mission with NASA.
I understand you have some breaking news. It's not over yet is the bottom line.
This is a massive operation.
It's quite an adventure here at CBSN.
It's been a day.
You
see the desperation in the journey simply by looking at the trail that's left behind.
So she says she's 17. She looks kind of like she's 12.
Said to me, you know, if you tried to do this in New York City, take a picture of a man, he'd break your camera.
I don't know.
Yeah, that was horrible. That woman was a nightmare.
Blame reside with Jewel? Is it now our top terrorist threat?
With the right people.
So you have forgiven.
I have now. Right here.
Check this out.
More news.
I'm Tony DeCoppel with CBS News.
More original reporting.
It puts everything in perspective. We are on a mission with NASA.
Every morning on CBS This Morning.
We're going to begin with breaking news.
Wow. That's not normal.
The biggest names in politics.
Whoa, that's news. Are we at a tipping point?
Face the questions you want answered.
Margo, that's a great question.
Good question. Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan.
I feel an incredible responsibility to be in the moderator position because people are overwhelmed by opinion right now. They are not necessarily always getting the kind of trusted, calm, contextualized analysis that we try to put on this program. This is moderating what a difficult place we are in our country, where often we can't have conversations. We have one on this show each week. We will tell you in Face the Nation what's important, we'll tell you why, and we will have the decision makers who are changing the country you're living in.
Go to the ends of the earth.
This is exciting.
You've never seen anything like it.
And reach for the stars.
This time. Da, 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 da.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Experience thought-provoking, innovative, and truly original reporting.
Stand back.
Because there's always something new under the sun. On CBS, Sunday morning.
Iowa has been the first state in the nation to hold its presidential contest since 1972. It came in the wake of the riots at the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. Party leadership wanted to give voters a more direct say in selecting the nominee. CBS News political unit associate producer Sarah Ewald-Weiss takes a look back at how the caucuses helped shape history.
In Iowa tonight, the American people began voicing their opinions about Campaign 76.
Iowa has been first for nearly 50 years, but it was the 1976 caucuses where the rest of the country started paying attention.
Well, I feel very pleased and proud of the showing we had in Iowa. I thought we'd come in first or second. I was hoping to come in first, but to come in 2-1 ahead of the next candidate was a very gratifying thing.
That year, a little-known governor from Georgia won the most support of any candidate.
I'm Jimmy Carter. Good to see you again.
He would go on to become the 39th president of the United States.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear.
Since 1972, all but 3 of the Democratic presidential nominees have come out on top in Iowa. Only Bill Clinton didn't place in the top 3.
This front section here will be Harkin supporters. Do we have Clinton supporters here?
That was back in 1992. That year, Iowa Senator Tom Harkin won his home state.
Now let's go out and win the big one.
Clinton came in 4th, but he made up for it soon after with a second-place finish in New Hampshire.
New Hampshire tonight has made Bill Clinton the comeback kid.
Since then, every Democratic presidential nominee has come out on top in Iowa.
Thank you
for the biggest victory in the history of the contested caucuses here in Iowa.
4 years later, Massachusetts Senator John Kerry managed to pull off a victory after trailing in the polls.
CBS News estimates John Kerry has won the Iowa Democratic caucuses, followed by John Edwards in second place. Dean and Gephardt followed in order.
You know, we worked hard. It was a great team effort. And Iowans. My tribute is to Iowans, not us.
But it was Howard Dean's caucus night speech that went down as one for the ages.
We're going to California and Texas and New York, and we're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan, and then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. Yeah!
Dean placed third, and his campaign never fully recovered.
This is our first caucus. We're going to campaign here. Together, ordinary people can do extraordinary things.
You are seeing turnout is going to tell us a story,
Yeah,
right? Because I think we've talked a lot about sort of the class narrative, but also the age narrative, and I think that's going to break down with kind of who turns out, because you really do have this boomer. You don't think so?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, we're done. I'm shaking my head at the control room. You're asking me a question. Ignore me over here.
Everything is like, I can't trust anything right
yes.
now. But no, you have
high alert.
Boomer versus Gen Z narrative, right? With Bernie really speaking to the college students, and you have this wine cave boomer demographic going for the Buttigieg Biden, and then the class narrative. And I do think that is going to trend into the general, right? This is the story of the modern Democratic Party, and it's the story of modern America.
So here's a fascinating thing: the caucus secretary for one of the precincts has been on the hold for over an hour, and they have 6 delegates. They can't even get through to the main thing, and this is. I mean,
you know what's interesting about this?
Go ahead.
This feeds at least a lot of people in the Sanders coalition, setting aside making a conspiratorial or anything like that.
Right.
This is a living enactment of the failure of institutions that his coalition is running against and experiencing on a daily basis.
Personally, I think it's the Russian bots.
Well, that would be what the wine cave contingent definitely think. But my question for them is, why is Pete overperforming then? That's what we really have. What is the Russian?
Their wine cave.
Good question.
The bots are in the wine cave.
What is the Russian connection?
The bots are inside.
The bots, it's coming.
This is what happens when you have to talk for 2 hours and you have no information. You begin to lose your mind.
Andrew, question for you, because you have a lot of contacts in Warren world. What are you hearing from them tonight? How do they feel about their turnout? We haven't honestly talked about her that much.
Break that tie.
Look, I really think that people don't really know what's going on. But I think that Warren is confident, confident in her strategy, which was we have field organizers across this state. We are there early. I think they were happy with some of the turnout we saw with the crowds, with Bernie 1, Warren 2, and some of these precincts that were on TV. I mean, look, I don't think. And I've been in a lot of war rooms over the years. If someone's telling you, well, we're looking good with 2% reporting, that you're going to start celebrating. I mean, this is a complete disaster. Right. I mean, and Troy Price took over the Iowa Democratic Party. He was seen as someone that could finally stabilize what had been a mess for a long time. Well, this is a joke.
Right.
I mean,
it is a joke.
This is the only type of election that is not run by a governing body. I mean, that's an independent. I mean, why we have our political party?
Do you think we should send in UN election?
I do want to. I saw that. I want to highlight the stakes here for whoever does end up winning, because what ends up happening here is that it's 11 p.m. on the East Coast. Most people said, "Screw it, I'm going to bed at this point." Right? I'll check when I wake up.
Not our people.
Our people are all watching, and I love you guys. I'm checking my Twitter mentions right now.
Go buy our book if you're bored.
Yeah. By the way, please do that. But I mean, while I'm checking this, I'm realizing it's 11 p.m. here on the East Coast. Tomorrow, Rachel, is the State of the Union. The day after that is the acquittal vote for President Donald Trump. It's a wash right now in terms of national media bump. And
always possible with these realignments that what looks good here
may not turn out on the delegate list.
Chuck, it all comes down to math. And I think one of the reasons why we're waiting on the data is because the math is so important here. And so a couple of things could be at play. We see a lot of stable numbers for all the 4 or 5 major candidates. But, you know, if Bernie Sanders in college places is actually running 4-to-1 margins, then all of a sudden that math matters. At the same time, if you are Mr. Even Steven Pete Buttigieg, and the question is, in all the different rural, urban, what the math actually is, we just don't know until the party tells us. But let me actually just defend the party for a second on this, because
somebody has to.
Because I will gladly do this.
Go ahead, Mark.
1, the math is complicated.
Yeah.
2, both parties have screwed up results in the past.
That's true.
Republicans in 2012.
There's no doubt
the
there.
Democratic race in
that was a disaster. And they
Wasn't Romney won Iowa the night of, and it turned out actually no, he lost Iowa.
And,
At that point, it didn't matter.
And the third reason is this is a huge field, and you know the Democratic field. It started big, it still is big, and we're still sorting all that out.
If they screw it up by that much, right? The party screws up just the time.
Shauna Thomas,
it's a different winner.
Basically, whatever chance I had to talking you into caucuses, this killed it, right? I mean, the IDP's failure to report results. Whatever chance I had to recruiting you over to the pro-caucus side of democracy.
I actually would say this isn't the thing that I have the problem with. I think other people have spoken to some of my issues with Iowa not being the most representative state in the union. I will say this: one former IDP communications director from a couple of cycles ago, Carrie Dan and my friend Carrie Giddens, did write to me, just report the results when they come in. Stop fueling this agenda that you think gets viewers. There is no delay. There is a process happening. Let it happen and tell us what happened. So I will say that's a blast from the past friend of ours, but who knows Iowa very, very well. And I think, you know what, we're seeing this process play out, and there are things that change. I think one thing to note is part of the changes that we are seeing amongst the Democratic Party in general when it comes to how the primary and caucus will play out over the months is because of the Bernie Sanders campaign, or is because of Bernie Sanders. And so, you know what?
That's right.
We're all going to sit and wait.
And you know, Chuck, and gang, it's the size of the field, I think, is also creating some of this. When you look at, you know, Hillary Clinton came in third back in 2008. It was a devastating night for her. It was marginally third, but she was behind John Edwards. And then you had the head-to-head, of course, with Bernie, the Obama victory being so important that year. But look, when you look in the past, we've never had a field this big in Iowa, not in years and years. And it really has fragmented the Democratic Party. The debate rules have been so inclusive that I think it's taken a while for people to focus on whom they're really supporting and who can, you know, be the candidate that they can get
behind.
By
the way, we are now just after 11 o'clock on the East, and at this point in time, Shauna and Andrea, I think we all would have expected to have heard a couple of call them victory speeches, perhaps for somebody that doesn't actually win, but for somebody that wanted to get on their New Hampshire plane already, and none of them get to leave their New Hampshire plane. I mean, the lateness of this makes these campaign speeches harder to be impactful.
Well, that's another really good point. For anyone remembering George McGovern's acceptance speech at 2 in the morning in Miami.
Locations, you have a wealth of challenges contained just in those numbers, but then also the fact that they're reporting 3 sets of numbers this year, right? So that's all a tremendous amount of information that's having to be tallied throughout the night.
Right, and they of course didn't intend for the system that they planned for to break down maybe at the last moment. And so
we don't know. We should clarify we're waiting on some information to see exactly what this delay might be all about. But there are reports out there, to your point, floating around about
and if you assume it happened abruptly, then it just literally takes time for them to call through that, you know, more than 1,700 locations to get those 3 sets of numbers.
And so with that in mind, then, Adam, I know you've been talking to officials. You've basically been here. We should point out Adam Brewster is one of our intrepid CBS News campaign reporters. You have lived here in Iowa for the past 8 months. So what is it that you're hearing about what might be taking place right now.
So what the party is saying, that integrity of the results is above everything. Paramount was the word that they used in the statement. And they said they've experienced a delay due to quality checks, partly because they're reporting out those 3 sets of data for the first time. Again, it's the popular vote on the first alignment, the popular vote on the second alignment, and the delegates.
Right.
So they're going to be reporting out all of those numbers from all of those approximately 1,700 precincts. They say about 25% have reported, and right now they're looking at turnout on pace actually for 2016. As early data indicates, turnout is on pace for 2016. Is
Okay.
what the party said in a statement.
Right. Well, turnout was a question, Antoine, that we had been talking about. That, was it going to be perhaps potentially record turnout? But what are your thoughts at this point in the evening, where we don't necessarily have a clear picture of what is happening with respect to the tallying of these caucus results? I mean, it's not necessarily obviously what the Democrats had hoped to be talking about at this point in the night.
No, it's not. But I think we can make some safe assumptions based on exits and entrances. And I think we can also make some assumptions based on momentum and energy around certain constituencies for certain candidates throughout this process, particularly people who are caucusing for the first time, or people who feel like they are looking for an alternative to the traditional Democratic norms. I think we can make some assumptions there. What we cannot assume is the type of coalition of voters that showed up, particularly in the more rural areas that are away from what I describe as the Iowa bubble. We've seen what happens in urban centers to a certain degree, but I'm very interested to see what happens in rural parts of Iowa, because that is a place where Democrats we have to find our groove again. We had a rural groove 2 times for Bill Clinton, at least 1.5 times for Barack Obama, but we've kind of lost our footing there, and I'm hopeful that there's some energy and there's some enthusiasm in the rural areas, and we see an uptick in turnout there.
I wonder, Adam, in your conversations with Democrats here in Iowa over the course of, these many months, it's been known that these changes obviously were in place and in the works. Was there any concern ever expressed by, either any likely caucus goers or any officials at the state or local level about how, in fact, this process would unfold?
They were always very confident, in saying that they were going to have this ready, and the state party chair always said this is going to be the most successful caucuses that we've ever had. Of course, there was a wrinkle if you think back. They had initially wanted to do these virtual caucuses for people who couldn't come in, phone calls over the phone.
Right, I remember that,
The DNC rejected that plan around Labor Day, and that's how we ended up with those satellite caucus sites. So if you think back, there has been times where they've hit roadblocks in the initial plan that they'd laid out a year ago. But that being said, the party has always said that they were going to be able to put together the most successful caucuses, and tonight, as their statement says, they're just trying to protect the integrity of the results.
And Linda, the reason these caucuses exist is because, as we've been talking about all evening long, this was an idea that we wanted to have more direct voter participation, right? Can you talk about that a little bit? The reason why the Iowa caucuses play out the way that they do, where you have this very sort of, some might say, Byzantine, I think is one word that was used to describe it, process where you're literally voting with your feet, going to different parts of a giant caucus room to make your support for a particular candidate known. I mean, this was very much in response to what happened in 1968 at the Democratic Convention.
Right. Well, so you've got your proponents and your detractors of the caucus experience. But for those who are not familiar with it, the process is pretty straightforward in the sense that you've got individuals who are advocates for a campaign making their pitch. I mean, what is more democratic than hearing the pitch, the ideas, the vision for the campaign that is soliciting your support? And then as part of this process, assuming that certain individuals make it to different corners of the room, they found the pitches exciting, there's still the opportunity to persuade your fellow neighbor. And Antoine spoke about this a little bit earlier, how the messenger matters at the top of the ticket, but the messenger in a democratic process absolutely matters when you're talking about your neighbors. I mean, who's more trusted as a messenger than the person who lives in the same community as you do? And so this whole idea idea of having people engaged in real time in a conversation about the issues that matter to them and trying to persuade each other to participate and for it to be played out in your own community is kind of the heart of democracy.
Yeah.
And that's why caucuses are always a place of manageable expectations. The Iowa Democratic Party should have had manageable expectations tonight, and for every candidate and campaign, manageable expectations, because things can change very quickly. Caucus goers' moods can change very quickly, i.e. what you just said about when you get into a room, you have a conversation, and voila, you realize Linda's there, I'm over here. I trust Linda to help me make decisions, so I'm going to go where she is. And that's the uniqueness of caucuses.
All right, we want to check in right now with the Biden campaign. For that, let us bring in our Bo Erickson, CBS News 2020 campaign reporter, joining me now from Biden campaign headquarters in Des Moines. So, Bo, what's the latest that you're hearing from there?
Well, just like the other campaigns, we are waiting on these caucus results to change and get in here. The people are very energetic. There's about 300 to 400 people here at the Biden event right now. First, I guess the good news for the Biden campaign. I've talked to 17 precinct captains around this Des Moines area, greater Des Moines area, and precinct captains are basically like the team leader at the caucuses. And 16 out of the 17 precinct captains said that Joe Biden was viable in their precincts.
Of voters that showed up, particularly in the more rural areas that are away from what I describe as the Iowa bubble. We've seen what happens in urban centers too.
All right, guys, I can't really hold off much longer. We're going to have to do a video about this quality control stuff. It's really starting to bug me. Okay, so we need to, we're going to do this on stream. We're going to make this video on stream. You're going to see pretty much the entire process. So first of all, we need to pull up the tweets here. This tweet, and let's see here, this tweet. All right, now we also need to, let's see this guy here, because he just says something that kind of perked my interest.
Your own community is
very quickly. Caucus goers' moods can change very quickly, i.e. what you just said about when you get into a room, you have a conversation, and voila, you realize Linda's there.
Greater Des Moines area, and precinct captains are basically like the team leader at the caucuses. And 16 out of the 17 precinct captains said that Joe Biden was viable in their
campaign. For that, let us bring in our Bo Erickson, CBS News 2020 campaign reporter, joining me now from Biden campaign headquarters in Des Moines. So, Bo, what's the latest that you're hearing from there?
Well, just like the other campaigns, we are waiting on these caucus results to change and get in here. The people are very energetic. There's about 300 to 400 people here at the Biden event right now. First, I guess the good news for the Biden campaign. I've talked to 17 precinct captains around this Des Moines area, greater Des Moines area, and precinct captains are basically like the team leader at the caucuses. And 16 out of the 17 precinct captains said that Joe Biden was viable in their precincts. Now, a lot of these precincts, they said, are some of the low delegate thresholds for the state.
The challenge here, Linda, in gathering this information with these caucuses, it's a lot of data to gather. 1,678 actual precinct sites, right? 99 satellite locations. You have a wealth of challenges contained just in those numbers, but then also the fact that they're reporting 3 sets of numbers this year, right? So that's all a tremendous amount of information that's having to be tallied throughout the night.
Right, and they of course didn't intend for the system that they planned for to break down maybe at the last moment. And so
we don't know. We should clarify. We're waiting on some information to see exactly what this delay might be all about. But there are reports out there, to your point, floating around about
and if you assume it happened abruptly, then it just literally takes time for them to call through that, more than 1,700 locations to get those 3 sets of numbers.
And so with that in mind, then, Adam, I know you've been talking to officials.
How's it gangin', dudes and dudettes? My name is Sean, and you're gonna want to go ahead and smack some gravy, guys. I'm telling you. And make sure you share this, man. We gotta get them taters out there, because I'm telling you what, something is fishy here. I'm telling you guys. For those of you who don't know, you might have already watched this because we're on stream right now. I couldn't help myself, guys. I had to hop on here and make this really, very unedited video and just really impromptu, because there's some weird fishy stuff going on. Iowa caucus results slow dramatically as state Democratic Party stresses quality control. Now, I'm getting ready to show you a couple of clips that we have just pre-recorded for this video, and the mainstream pundits are already making up excuses on why this quality control needs to be happening, other than just there's a lot of votes and a lot of delegates and a lot of tallies that need to be marked. Okay, that takes time. We get that. But why emphasis quality control? Why is that now all of a sudden such a thing? So it says returns from Iowa presidential caucuses were much slower than expected Monday night, as the state Democratic Party said it was working on quality control. We are doing our quality control checks, making sure the numbers are accurate. Wait, so what do you mean? Isn't there? So we've been watching these streams. Isn't there a practice and play based off team captains, and then whoever is the caucus head at the certain areas, and isn't that their job, is to tally all this stuff? Or is the DNC saying that they're going to comb through the numbers themselves? Is that what they're saying? Because if you look over here, there's people tweeting out their own personal actual results, and it says Yang had 42 delegates. I think that's 15% of the threshold, right? I think that means he's viable and he counts in Iowa. Now, he's supposed to have 41, right? And that translates to actual delegates? I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not from Iowa. I don't know really how caucusing works, so I don't want to spread too much misinformation. But 42 total delegates, that's apparently Andrew Yang shocked the world, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody thought he was going to do so much better. All the mainstream media had this blackout where they didn't want to show Yang. Nobody talked about Yang. Even Jake Tapper, almost bit the dust whenever he had to talk about Yang being better than Biden in Des Moines. So there's something going on here. The party said it would release information about the results as soon as it passes quality control, adding it takes another additional steps out of the abundance of caution. Abundance of what caution? What caution is there? There's nothing wrong. You cast the tallies. I mean, unless there's something wrong with certain pre like we seen in the Zach and Matt stream, where it seemed like the people in charge didn't really know what they were doing, and people had to go up there and correct them. Maybe the DNC is doing something like that, but the DNC has never, ever done anything out of the interest of fairness. They literally had a court case where they said that they don't have to be fair because they're a for-profit company. So if Yang doesn't get 42 or more delegates, because I don't think all the numbers are in yet, so this is just the bare minimum for threshold, something's definitely off. And also, if I can find it here, let's see. I'm not sure which article this came from, but it said, update, polls closed as Yang supporters ruined the poll. Why? Because we did so good? I'm not sure which precinct this is, but that's kind of a win. You know what I'm saying? It's a win for us. And then this person right here, William Lex Hams. After that, I found that they tried to screw us out of a vote in the first alignment. I made sure they made the correction from 3 to 4. I'm so pissed at this malarkey, and will be surprised if Andrew Yang gets one state delegate. This is not democracy. Oh yeah, he'll definitely get more than one delegate. That's for sure. At least he better, unless this quality control thing kicks in. So yeah, this is crazy. this is crazy. And Andrew Yang is doing well in Iowa, and they don't want to cover that. He's not running away with the nomination, but he looks like he's on track to be 4th and 5th place. And some he's better than Sanders and better than Biden. So, anyways, let's go ahead and play these clips because there's just something off with these people. All right, so obviously in the first part, the mainstream media hacks are literally just bullshitting. You know what I mean? They're just making shit up as to why this definitely needs to happen. This quality control should obviously happen, right? And the guy at the end says, "Oh, the Joe Biden people are eagerly awaiting the results of a change," as if they're automatically assuming there's going to be a change from the results from this quality control. Is that what the DNC is doing? So are they rigging it again? Are they doing the same stuff again? Like, this is crazy. So to finish off this article, it says, what we know right now is that around 25% of precincts have reported, and early data indicates turnout is on pace for 2016. Shortly after 10 p.m., no results have been reported. As much slower process has been expected. At about the same time in 2016 caucuses, more than half the votes had already been reported. So be looking for some shenanigans, guys, okay? Because something is definitely going on here. And this early reporting, like, what is going on with that? That is definitely something's wrong with that. So, look, we're live right now. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys. I love you. Make sure you smack the gravy, all the comments, all the good stuff like that. And that's all I got for you guys. We're going back to the stream.
This technical situation that we're in. And so some are going to say the results are flawed, perhaps they're not true when they come out. Others are going to say they're very much true. The momentum, we saw it, we felt it, all the things.
Do you think people will question
Let's go ahead.
Well, this is a serious issue in the sense that it raises that specter of suspicion, and that is going to continue to percolate, especially amongst some individuals who feel they've already been kind of siphoned off from the process because they changed the rules. And also, it's also going to be looking at, and I'm telling you, I'll predict this, who developed that application, the app that the Democrats were relying on to relay that information. It's going to go back to, were they consulting for previous campaigns? Did they have an alliance one way or the other? Were they proven to have failed technologies in the past? All of those things are going to help define how people frame this.
And I think it could be wide.
All right, we want to interrupt, I'm sorry, for just a moment. Senator Amy Klobuchar is addressing her supporters. Let's listen in.
This election is, yes, an economic check, but it also is a patriotic check. It is a decency check. It is the simple idea. It's a simple idea that the heart of America is so much bigger than the heart of this guy in the White House. Our country cannot take another 4 years of Donald Trump. Our collective sense of decency can't take another 4 years. The rule of law can't withstand another 4 years of a president that thinks he's above it. Our democracy cannot tolerate another 4 years of a president who wants to bulldoze right through it. The American dream cannot take another 4 years of a president who thinks he can choose who gets it. His playbook is not hard to understand. It is really 3 words: understand. It is really 3 words: divide and demoralize. Well, I have a playbook that's 3 words: unite and lead. That is how I have passed over 100 bills as the lead Democrat in the United States Senate, in the middle of that gridlock. And that is how I have won elections in the reddest of red congressional districts, in the bluest of blue congressional districts. The president, though, he might as well have a sign on his desk that says, the buck stops anywhere but here. Look at what he has done. He blames everyone for our problems. He blames everyone, people that shouldn't be blamed. Who does he blame? He blames immigrants, right? He blames Barack Obama. He blames the Fed chair that he nominated, the energy secretary that he appointed, the generals that he commands, and yes, the King of Denmark. He even recently blamed Justin Trudeau for cutting him out of the Canadian version of Home Alone 2. Who does that? Who does that? So let me tell you what I will do. When I am behind that desk, I will take responsibility instead of passing it on. I will reach across the aisle and work with Americans in good faith. Instead of picking fights, I'll bring this country together instead of pushing it apart.
Off with these
Some
people.
of you may know that old story about Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And it was a story about how after he died, they put his body on a train and it worked its way to Washington, D.C. And there's a story of a reporter who came upon a man who was crying by the side of those tracks. And the man had his hat on his chest and he was sobbing. And the reporter looked at him and said, "Sir, do you know President Roosevelt? Did you know him?" And the man says, "No, I didn't know President Roosevelt, but he knew me. He knew me." And what we are missing so much right now in our country is that sense of empathy. We are missing that caring. And I promise you this, I will bring back that sacred trust between the American people and the President of the United
Captains
States.
said that Joe Biden
And our Bo Erickson, CBS News 2020 campaign reporter, joined
the other campaigns. We are waiting on these caucus results
You are
to
sick and tired of hearing how great the economy is when you don't feel it, when your paycheck is stretched to the breaking point month after month. I know you, and I will fight for you. If you are sick of choosing between paying for daycare for your kids and long-term care for your parents, I know you, and I will fight for you. If you're sick of being torn between filling a refrigerator and filling a prescription, I know you, and I will fight for you.
It's a lot of data
to
to get.
If you want a Democratic nominee who can make our tent bigger and our coalition wider and our coattails longer, if you want that
Right now, anyways, that's all I got for you guys. I love you. Make sure you smack the gravy, all the comments, all the good stuff like that. And that's all I got for you guys. We're going back to the stream.
and the noise and the nonsense, you have a home with me. So please join our campaign at amyklobuchar.com. Join us because we are going to be here a really long time tonight, and you will have plenty of time to join us at amyklobuchar.com. So let's stay up. Let's stay in a good spirit, because you all know what happened out there in those precincts. You know that we have been punching way beyond our weight. You know that despite some limited resources compared to some of those bigger bank accounts, we are way on the board. So let's stay up. Let's stay up. Let's stay happy, and let's head to New Hampshire. Thank you, Iowa.
So even as we await the results of the Iowa caucuses, there you heard Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota saying she is going on to New Hampshire. Let's take you now to the CBS Broadcast Center in New York and check in with Lana Zak and Anthony Salvanto. Lana?
Elaine, I was speaking with a Democratic Party official there in Iowa, and he tells me that simply counting 3 different data sets is a lot more difficult than just one, which has been all that they've had to do in the past. So I've got Anthony here with me again. I want you to help us peek behind the curtain and figure out why people are frustrated by why this is taking so long. Because I remember last time, it wasn't until the next day that we certified the Iowa caucus winner. Why is this a little bit different?
Did we tell you, Elaine, it was going to be a late night? See, people say, the decision desk, we know stuff.
You told
right?
us, Anthony.
We told you.
You did warn us. Yes, you did.
So I got that one. But look, here's what's been happening. We're obviously all still waiting for data, and you're starting to see candidate speeches now. Remember, the Iowa caucuses are about getting attention. They're not really about just delegates, because there's only 41 of them to get. So if those candidates wanted to win and get up there on that podium as a winner in front of that primetime audience, so that obviously, this timing makes that a little harder. But I do want to take you inside to your question, Lana, which is, what is it that might be holding this up? And this empty board, believe it or not, can tell you a story, which is, we were preparing to show you first when the party put out the initial choice count. Obviously, that's blank, okay? And then we were going to show you the final choice count, right? Final choice, that's blank too.
And make sure you share this.
The delegates that each candidate got, again, blank for now. All right. So the party was putting out 3 sets of numbers. And it may be that putting out all of those numbers, or trying to, is part of what's holding this up. They've got to do all those calculations.
We got to get them taters out there, because
make sure everything went right in the caucuses before they can start putting it out and filling up our map here.
And so one of the differences from the last Iowa caucus that we both covered was that even though we didn't have a winner that we could certify until the very next day, we at least had some numbers here. We had some inkling of who was having a good night, who was having a bad night. We had a storyline, right? That Sanders and Clinton were neck and neck. Right now, we can't say anything about anybody except for who's in the top 4.
Right. In 2016, it was neck and neck between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. People were seeing results as that night went along, but it was seesawing back and forth. And it wasn't really until the next day that we found out from the party that there had been a slight edge for Hillary Clinton. Maybe ironically, that was one of the reasons that the party reportedly moved to this kind of an operation, because they wanted to be more transparent and put out everything that's happened in the caucus. And so maybe that sort of leads to this in some way.
So we have heard from some campaigns, and we're going to continue hearing from all of that. Elaine, I'm sending it back over to you in Iowa.
All right, we want to take you now to Senator Elizabeth Warren, who's speaking. Let's listen.
So listen, it is too close to call, so I'm just going to tell you what I do know. You won! As the baby daughter of a janitor, I am so grateful to be up on this stage tonight. Tonight, as a party, we are one step closer to defeating the most corrupt president in American history. Tomorrow, Donald Trump will make a speech about the State of the Union, but I have a message for every American. Our union is stronger than Donald Trump. And in less than a year, our union will be stronger than ever when that one man is replaced by
Very quickly, we want to let you know Joe Biden is speaking now as well. We're going to bring you his comments in their entirety in just a moment. For now, back to Senator Warren.
I see America from very different viewpoints, and we have since we were born. Trump grew up in New York City in a 23-room, 9-bathroom mansion. I grew up out in Oklahoma in a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom and a converted garage where my 3 brothers slept. By the time he was 3, Donald Trump was getting a $200,000 allowance every year from his dad's real estate empire. In total, he got nearly $500 million from his dad. Me? I took on small jobs to make money, babysitting, waitressing, sewing dresses for my aunts. Donald Trump claimed bone spurs to avoid the draft. All 3 of my older brothers signed up for military service, and the oldest spent 5.5 years off and on in combat in Vietnam. Before he became a reality TV host, Donald Trump spent most of his career running one company after another into bankruptcy, stiffing small businesses, ripping off workers, and scamming students. I spent most of my career studying why families go broke and fighting to make it easier for them to get back on their feet. Before I was even elected to office, I built an entire federal agency to stop big banks and financial institutions from cheating people. I tell you this. But I tell you this because a person's values matter. A president's values matter. And the only thing Donald Trump values is Donald Trump. He believes that government is just one more thing to exploit, a tool to enrich himself and his corrupt buddies at everyone else's expense. I believe government should work for everyone. We don't know all the results tonight, but tonight has already showed that Americans have a deep hunger for big structural change to make our economy and our democracy work for everyone. Tonight showed that our path to victory is to fight hard for the changes Americans are demanding, changes that Democrats, Independents, and Republicans are demanding. Tonight showed that our agenda isn't just a progressive agenda. It isn't just a Democratic agenda. It's an American agenda. Throughout our history, when moments of crisis have called on us to meet big challenges, Americans have answered the call. Even when the doubters and critics say that our dreams are too big and the fights are too hard, we persist. In the 1700s, when people said we could never overthrow a king and form a new republic, farmers and merchants came together and fought side by side until we won our independence. In the 1800s, people said that slavery would endure forever and African Americans would never see liberation. But abolitionists, enslaved and formerly enslaved people formed an underground railroad, and more than 2 million people waged a war to defeat the tyranny of slavery. And in the 1900s, people said we could never rescue our economy from the depths of the Great Depression or defeat fascism. But we forged a New Deal. We mobilized to defeat fascism. We expanded unions. We built a middle class, and we marched for civil rights. Americans do big things. That's who we are. We don't settle. We don't back down. We meet big problems with even bigger solutions. So I'm here tonight because I believe that big dreams are still possible in America. Tonight, you showed that when you imagine an America that lives up to its ideals, you can set in motion the process of making it a reality. All it takes is some hard work and better connections. And here in Iowa, that's what happened. You came together, you organized, you showed that we are united in our conviction that hope defeats fear, that courage overcomes cynicism, that we will always be a stronger party and a stronger nation when we unite around our shared values to advance justice and expand opportunity to everyone. So right now, across America, there are folks standing with groups of friends or sitting on the couch with loved ones or maybe even watching this quietly on their phones because everyone else in the house is asleep. Watching and thinking, maybe I could help out. Maybe I could volunteer some time. Maybe I could get in the fight. And that is how we're going to do this. I am here tonight to tell you, if you have hope that America can be better than it has been in these last few years, and if you have the courage to speak out and do a little organizing with us, then this campaign is for you. Imagine an America where corruption doesn't block our ability to reduce gun violence, an America where we can urgently tackle climate change, an America where we can bring an end to the opioid epidemic, then this campaign is for you. If you can imagine an economy where every job has dignity, where people are paid a livable wage, and where everyone has a real chance to thrive, then this campaign is for you. And if you can imagine a democracy where people, not money, come first, this campaign is for you. If you can imagine an America of moral clarity that lives its values every day, then this campaign is for you. Tonight, we are one step closer to winning the fight for the America we imagine is possible. Tonight is for you. Tonight is for every volunteer who put their feet to the pavement to fight for change. It's for every organizer who braved the blistering cold to knock on doors. It's for every person who made a call or sent a text to spread the word. I'm going to tell you about some of our volunteers, because tonight is for the veteran who came back diagnosed with PTSD and who volunteered every week to help us become a nation that honors its promises to its veterans. Tonight is for every undocumented, unafraid organizer and volunteer who proudly knocked on doors to let the world know that the path to progress runs through courage, not fear. Tonight is for the innovative, persistent women who organized babysitting clubs so they could get in more hours of volunteering. And tonight is for the single mother who had been homeless and who was so determined that her twin daughters would grow up in a better world that she found the spare moments to make calls on our behalf. Tonight is for everyone who believes that that no matter the color of your skin, who you love, how you worship, where you were born, or what zip code you live in, you should be safe and your opportunities should be pretty much as good as everyone else's. Yep. In every day and every way, this movement is made up of people who know that the only way to make progress and to build power is to fight from the heart. So tonight, Iowa, and all of you, I want to say thank you. Thank you for living your values. Thank you for standing together, fighting together, persisting together. You have made me a better candidate, and you will make me a better president. I want to thank my sweetie Bruce. I couldn't do it. And thanks to Bailey. He truly is a good boy. Together, we have built a movement powered by hopeful, courageous people who will do the work to make the change we need. And we're just getting started. This race will be decided by people like you. And if you believe that something should be done, then I'm asking you to do something. Go to ElizabethWarren.com right now. Pitch in a few bucks, sign up to volunteer, get involved with our campaign near wherever you live. Because this race started right here in Iowa, but from tomorrow, it will run from ocean to ocean. East to New Hampshire, and then west to Nevada, and then down to South Carolina. This fight will stretch across all 57 states and territories that make up this great nation until we unite together as a party in Milwaukee. Here, but we are built for the long haul. Yeah, we still have a fight on our hands, but we are fueled by the hope in our hearts. Our optimism and our determination run deep. And no matter what lies ahead, we are not afraid. This is our moment. This is the moment we have been called to. Our moment to make history. Our moment to dream big, fight hard, and win.
We've been listening to Senator Elizabeth Warren address supporters. CBS News has learned the Iowa Democratic Party will be holding a call with all of the presidential campaigns soon to explain the delay in reporting the data. As we mentioned, former Vice President Joe Biden also spoke to supporters. Let's go ahead and listen to what he had to say.
Make sure they're very careful in their deliberations. And indications are, from our indications, it's going to be close. We're going to walk out of here with our share of delegates. We don't know exactly what it is yet, but we feel good about where we are. And look, so it's on to New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, and well beyond. We're in this for the long haul. And I want us to remember, not just tonight, but throughout this campaign, thank you. This isn't just another election. This is well beyond our party. This is about ending an era of well, ending an era, God willing, of a president who, look, this is bigger than any of us. It really is. We cannot allow Donald Trump to be reelected to the United States presidency again. I'm ready to give him a new nickname. The former President Trump, Chris. The former President Trump. And folks, as I said, it's bigger than any candidate, bigger than any party. And folks, you know, I said from the outset, Jill and I both said, we're in a battle for the soul of the nation. And that's not hyperbole. We really believe that, and I think it's been demonstrated every single hour he remains as President of the United States. Folks, each and every one of us knows that deep in our bones that everything this nation stands for is at stake. And I really mean it. 4 more years of Donald Trump will fundamentally alter the character of this nation. And character is on the ballot. That's what this is. Everything that makes America is at stake, and literally our democracy is at stake, in my view, our view. I say our view because you've been doing as hard as I have. Folks, and folks, I love her too, man. Well, I tell you what, and the other reason we're running and we're gonna make sure it happens is we got to rebuild the backbone of this country. The working class, the middle class, they've been getting laid out badly by this administration. The middle class is being hurt very badly. But look, you know what? We have to unify this country as well. Everybody understands that CEOs and Wall Street bankers didn't build America. Ordinary, hardworking people led by unions built America. Unions. And folks, we need a president who's not only ready to fight, but is also ready to heal this country. We can't hold grudges. We've got to be able to go out and unify the country because the president is supposed to heal as well as fight. And that's exactly what I plan on doing, we plan on doing, all of us in this hall plan on doing. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, I'm going to go all over this country, every part of the Democratic Party, and unite it. Men, women, gay, straight, everyone, black, brown, a whole universe of people out there. Because folks, there's nothing we've ever failed at when we've tried to do it together. Nothing America's ever failed at. And so, ladies and gentlemen, all my friends, and by the way, I want to take a special thanks again to Al Shapeberg and the firefighters. You've been incredible to us. You've been incredible to us. But folks, everybody knows who Donald Trump is. Well, it's fortunate they do know now. They didn't know last time, I don't think. But they know now. And folks, we got to let them know who we are. We choose hope over fear. We choose science over fiction. Unity over division. And compassion over cruelty. And maybe most importantly of all, truth over lies. Folks, we're going to do this. I promise you. I promise you we're going to get this done. And God willing, we'll do it together. May God bless you all and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. On to New Hampshire.
That was former Vice President Joe Biden just moments ago. CBS News has learned that the call between the Democratic campaigns and the Iowa Democratic Party is now over. The Biden campaign sent a letter to the Iowa Democratic Party earlier saying, quote, "We believe that the campaigns deserve full explanations and relevant information regarding the methods of quality control you are employing and an opportunity to respond before any official results are released." Now let's take you to Senator Bernie Sanders. He also addressed supporters moments ago.
So let me conclude by thanking our great staff, our volunteers here in Iowa, And now it is on to New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, California, and onward to victory. Thank you all very much.
We are going to bring you more of Senator Sanders' remarks just a little bit later on. For now, let's turn back to our panel, Antoine Seawright, Leslie Sanchez, and Linda Tran. So for the past 20 minutes or so, I've been seeing a flurry of emails coming in from our various reporters at CBS News, just talking about the individual kind of pieces of this story that's still emerging. What I can tell you now, as I just was handed this from our Musaddiq Bidar, who is a CBS News 2020 campaign reporter here in Iowa. This is from the Dallas County Chair, Bryce Smith. The app situation crashed. We've been talking about the app that had been used to sort of get those tallies, right, to the Iowa Democratic Party. Every precinct chair is forced to call in or email results. This chair is huddled up at a barn recruiting volunteers to go help the Iowa Democratic Party. So how they're handling it, you have precinct chairs, and you have to follow me with this, emailing the results with a screenshot of the math to him. He is the county chair. The county chair then forwards this email to the Iowa Democratic Party. Smith then puts the precinct chair on hold, calls the Democratic Party, waits on hold for the IDP to confirm the results, then lets the precinct chair go. So according to the reporting site, there are 34 precincts in Dallas County, so you can only imagine how long this process is going to take. So if you follow me, taking a screenshot, emailing it, you have to get the relevant party on hold, the Iowa Democratic Party on hold, and then you have to get the precinct chair. It sounds like a very laborious process here. Antoine, are we going to have results tonight?
Absolutely not. We may not have true results for another week or so, depending on how many people throw rocks at the process, cast doubt about the results, and God knows what the media narrative may be after tonight, and who knows what others, future participants in this nomination process may think. I definitely do not think we will have results tonight, and if there are results, I don't know any campaign that I've texted with here that feel good about the results that could come out of tonight.
All right, I want to read another statement. This is from the Iowa Democratic Party's communications director, Mandy McClure. This is coming to us via Adam Brewster, our campaign reporter who was just with us a short time ago. This is a quote. Quote, "We found inconsistencies in the reporting of 3 sets of results. In addition to the text systems being used to tabulate results, we are also using photos of results and a paper trail to validate that all results match and ensure that we have confidence and accuracy in the numbers we report. This is simply a reporting issue. The app did not go down, and this is not a hack or an intrusion. The underlying data and paper trail is sound and will simply take time to further report the results." So, Linda, that's the statement. Already, though, I mean, I see the skepticism on your face.
This is feeling a lot like Florida 2000. I mean, I shudder to say it, but I mean, once we're getting into needing to actually look at actual pieces of paper, then this process is going to be, as Antoine's saying, a lot lengthier than one would have hoped. And in the end, no matter what the outcome is at this point, with all of these machinations and all of the confusion and different descriptions of what the process is, I would not be surprised if various campaigns questioned the results.
So, not surprisingly, Leslie, we have a statement from the Trump campaign on the Iowa caucuses.
Leslie wrote it.
Just coming in.
I've been very busy here.
You know, at this point, it's not a surprise. This is coming from Brad Parscale, who I was going to actually pose the question before this statement got handed to me about. I imagine
What
this
I told Brad to say?
No,
I'll go ahead and
but I imagine, you know, this is something that they were going to weigh in on, and here it is. It says, from Brad Parscale, Trump 2020 campaign manager, quote, "Democrats are stewing in a caucus mess of their own creation with the sloppiest train wreck in history. It would be natural for people to doubt the fairness of the process, and these are the people who want to run our entire healthcare system. Tonight, President Trump posted a record performance in the well-run GOP Iowa caucuses with record turnout for an incumbent. So this, for the president, is probably got to be a political gift that he could not have imagined going into tonight.
Some people had thought the headline would be, the winner of the evening is the Trump campaign, right? Because of the disorganization or the splitting, that we talked about, the divides within the Democratic caucus and what that would mean long term. But no, it wasn't any of that. The telenovela went in another direction, a surprise twist, and the technology is really what's causing a lot of the angst right now. What's interesting, there was an associate an AP report that came out a couple of days ago, very prescient, talking about the vulnerability of this particular technology, of this application. And you had some individuals that were quoted in that story saying they were very scared because they were doing vulnerability assessments. When you're doing something this dramatic on such a big night with so many people, eyeballs, and everybody watching, that's never really been tested, in terms of a capacity test like this. There's a lot of alarms that go off for people that do this every day. And they never disclosed who the developer of this was, so they were not hacked. But again, it lays the breadcrumbs that Brad's talking about in there, and that they couldn't efficiently do it well.
All right, I want to bring into this conversation CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. He is at Senator Sanders' campaign headquarters. But Ed, I actually want to ask you about this letter, unless you've got some new reporting that you want to tell us about. This letter that we just talked about. Okay, so Ed's having trouble hearing us. We're going to try and get our connection to him fixed, and we'll come back in just a moment. But what is it that, when you think about this statement from Brad Parscale, Antoine, as a Democrat, is this essentially something that you couldn't possibly have envisioned? Or were you hearing that there was a general level of confidence in the way that this was going to unfold with respect to the reporting results getting out, that maybe it was going to be a late night, but there wasn't going to be a question about the integrity of these results?
I believe in people's intent. I'm a fundamental believer in intent. And I believe the intent of this process was to make it more fair, more transparent, and to make a broad coalition within this party happy. I think there was an honest attempt to do that tonight. No one can anticipate when these things happen. I do think you have to measure 3 times, cut once in these situations to avoid as much error as you can to limit the possibilities of error. But I don't think there was intent. And the fact of the matter is, no matter what happened tonight, the Trump campaign and the Republican Party were going to try to put some kind of spin on it in order to appease their base of voters and to try to honestly make us look like we are unorganized and we have a flawed process and our candidates are flawed. So I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah, let me turn back to Ed O'Keefe because I think we've got our connection established. Ed, can you explain this letter that we just reported on from the Biden campaign?
Elaine, I'm going to start talking, but I can't hear you. So let me just convey a few things. Oh, there you are. There you are. I can hear you now. Elaine, talk to me again.
All right. So, Ed, I was just going to ask you about this letter from the Biden campaign.
Yeah, let's unpack a few things here, Elaine. First of all, our Major Garrett is reporting, lest there be any concerns, a senior administration official tells him there are no signs, at least at the federal level, that there was some kind of cyber attack or hacking done to this, that it looks like, as the Iowa Democratic Party is saying, this was human error, or at least some issue with with getting all the results and being able to report them. As our colleague Nicole Killian has heard from a DNC official, this is the price of transparency, expediency, and so they're going to have to take a little while longer. To Antoine's point earlier about whether or not this gets done tonight, we don't have clear guidance on whether that will happen. But clearly, there is a possibility that this now could take a few days. Be that as it may, the campaigns are out of here. They are on their way. The only person we know that is staying and already had plans to stay the night is Bernie Sanders. Nina Turner, one of his top advisors, after he left the stage, came back to say, if there's a count tonight and we win it, he'll come back out here and address you again. But that is not expected, at least that's not the guidance we have. As to that letter, the Biden campaign, in the form of its general counsel, sent a note to the Iowa Democratic Party earlier tonight saying that they are concerned with the, quote, considerable flaws in tonight's Iowa caucus reporting system. There was an app that the various precincts were supposed to use to report results. The Biden campaign says, quote,
On air
The
anymore.
app that was intended to relay caucus results to the party.
Please. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Flying's faster than driving.
No, but I'm saying the homing capability. It's like crows don't home so well.
No.
Seagulls don't home so well.
Maybe it's just
carrier pigeons like they
I
home.
think they got simple brains. That's why they can only think of like a thing. Like, just go there.
Yeah.
That's it. They literally they don't know anything else. Just I'm going to the place.
Dude, that's funny.
But yeah, I'm at the point now where I'm desperately looking for a source on results to come out tomorrow, so we can because it's. I want to see the clip of Joy Reid saying this was a great night for Bloomberg for some reason. Like, why? Why was this a great night for Bloomberg? I don't understand. I guess just because Iowa was a dumpster fire. I mean, I don't know. I need a reason. So I'm trying to pull up something. I saw it a minute ago. The Biden email he sent to the DNC. I think I just saw that a second ago. Oh man, I lost it. Biden has sent an email and he's made the email public. Basically, just attacks the DNC. Allegedly. I'm trying to find it. Where is this?
Hey, Harkins Aquatics works in pest control as well. Rock on. You got to tell me what kind, bro. That's
Nice,
sick.
dude. Minutes and time.
And what state? Because I've gotten a license in multiple states, so that's pretty cool.
I'm really going to try to pull up this. Where is this? Hold on a second. This Joe Biden email. I want to see what Biden said.
So Benjamin McDonald says certain birds are tuned to the magnetic field. They find their way back through following the field lines of the Earth's magnetic field. It's wicked cool. I believe that would be wicked cool.
Magnetic fields. Hell yeah.
And in fact, actually, can I tell you really fast while you're trying to source that data, Cody, how we naturally get rid of at a lot of defense contractors. A lot of defense contractors that have the huge hangars that have top secret stuff in them, so they don't want to just like leave them open for pest control people to be, building all kinds of different anti-pigeon devices and so on and so forth. Do you know how we get rid of pigeons, quote, organically? Because we also can't just shoot at them with air rifles. You know how you get rid of pigeons, dude? There's falconers that you can hire. And these dudes show up with these BA gloves and falcons. And what
Pete Buttigieg. Joe Biden is pleased with this because all indications were he was not going to do well tonight. Well, now he can cast doubt on the results and say, well, whatever, you won the caucus, but that thing was so terribly organized. Here, I won a primary in New Hampshire or South Carolina or on Super Tuesday, whatever it is. Perhaps this generates more interest and concern across the country, but all it really will do is cast doubt on the entire process. The fact that there are still so many candidates in this thing, so many staffers working for rival campaigns, and now no clear indication of who's actually in the lead.
All right, our Ed O'Keefe there at Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign headquarters. Oh, sorry, Ed, someone was talking in my
How's it? Alright, there you go, guys. The video is up, and I'm going to go ahead and end the stream now. You know, I'm getting kind of tired, and it looks like Andrew Yang hasn't started his rally yet, so I can't really, you know, get that anywhere going on right now. So it looks like Andrew Yang did pass the threshold. He should pass the threshold, which means he should get some delegates from Iowa to go, you know, in his corner, like that will officially count. If this quality control thing doesn't, if they don't do some weird stuff, some shenanigans with that, most likely it will. It looked like it's a good night for us. Yang shocked the world, guys. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I'm a little tired. I can't be as chipper as I want to be. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Anyways, you guys have the link. Go ahead and click the link, and I hope you guys enjoy, and I appreciate you, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.